And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
Happy not Saturday. It is happy Friday night. This is a first. This is a rare one. We've got a rare Friday night birthday wingy with all sorts of stuff to talk about. What's going on, guys? How you doing? It is All Out weekend, and this is going to be a big one. Big next few days here on the channel. Lots to do. I originally had planned on maybe coming up here and doing a watch-along of Smackdown, but since we're going to be here tomorrow, doing a live reaction watch party for All Out, and the wrestling news is piling up again, I thought I would hold off on that and do a podcast tonight instead. A nice Friday night podcast. And yes, thank you to everybody in the stream there who was wishing me a happy birthday. Today is my actual birthday, 2 years in a row. We were here last year on my birthday, I think, doing a Dynamite watch along. We had a great time. And today is the big 4-7 for me, 47 years old. I was born in 1977 on September 6th. I was born 3 weeks after Elvis passed away. I was born one day after Voyager 1 was launched, which is the farthest man-made object we have out in the universe. The WWE was still WWF back then. The Intercontinental Championship was still 2 years away from being created. And Best of My Love by The Emotions was the #1 song in the country for my old ass when I was born. So thank you to everyone who was here hanging out with us tonight. Like I said, we don't often do Friday streams. Numbers are usually not good on Friday nights, but I'm home. I'm off. I'm not going to work on my fucking birthday. And I've already had some fun with friends this week. I got a big family dinner on Sunday that I'm celebrating for my birthday for. So I'm wide open tonight. So we are doing a podcast, a fun podcast, a laid back podcast. I have a ton of notes. We're going to talk about all my wrestling news. We had that Vince trailer coming out yesterday. Lots of news on that. We got a couple of lawsuits in AEW and WWE. We've got some releases to talk about. We've got some Legends deals to talk about. We have some AEW news, media call, rights deal stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about tonight's Smackdown, which just ended. Collision went head-to-head with Smackdown tonight. I kind of had the split screen going on, watching both shows, and I believe Rampage is going on right now. We'll talk a little bit about Dynamite, too, because Swerve got his house burned down. We're not going to talk much about Dynamite other than that amazing angle to close the show. And then, of course, we have to predict the entire pay-per-view for tomorrow's All Out, which, according to my notes, I have about 8 matches announced for that, which is a little bit less than the normal 10. So we got a lot on the menu tonight, but it's Friday night. It's not like we got to work tomorrow, right? At least I hope some of y'all don't. So we will take our time getting through all this and have a nice, fun, casual podcast hangout tonight on my birthday. So thank you so much to everyone for being here this evening. I have to go over to the chat now, say hello to everybody, and then we will get going on some wrestling news. But I do want to let you guys know that tomorrow night we will be here watching and live reacting to the All Out pay-per-view. The link to tomorrow's watch party is already up on the channel, so just click my page. You will see it right there at the top, and we'll be partying up in here. Fun times tomorrow for All Out. I'm looking forward to it. It was a quick turnaround on this pay-per-view, but I think there's enough going on this card that it should be somewhat interesting, and I think we might see some fun shit. And I'm hoping that Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland, that cage match, is the main event. Based on the show closing angle we saw on Dynamite on Wednesday, it better be, because that is just some wild stuff. So good. I'm glad that we got some good blood feuds. You got Punk and Drew in WWE right now. You got Swerve and Hangman in AEW. We got some good feuds out there if you're a wrestling fan, and we got a couple of really, really personal and bitter rivalries that are so fun to watch and can make for some of the best matches and best television. So we are pretty lucky and pretty fortunate to be consuming the content that we are currently consuming right now. Things ain't so shabby. But thanks again to everyone who is here. Happy weekend, happy Friday night to you. And I appreciate you being here with us on Friday night, because I know you probably have lots of options in terms of the YouTubers doing Smackdown reviews. So if you are here with us, thank you for that. Y'all are the best. I want to say hello to everybody that I can here. Jacob A., Garrett Osborne, Gerard316, Harry Rice, K-Dogs Kennel. Oh, yes, I did see your message on Twitter, and thank you to everyone who sent me DMs today, Instagram, Twitter, wherever it may be. I saw most of them. Thank you so much for all of the well wishes and all of the birthday wishes on social medias and all that good stuff. Thank you for all of that love. today. Very, very much appreciated. Good to see Zane G. Happy birthday, Shane. Yeah, Shane Helms, Gregory Helms. Can't tell us apart. Rob Strickland is here. He is Swerve's brother. A lot of people don't know that. Red Raven Rucker in the house. Good to see you. Thank you, man. Thank you to everybody for all these birthday wishes. Victor Colon, Tatanani, and Nick Musser. Like and subscribe. Yes, please do. We got Rodrigo in the house. We got Zach Palgett, Steve Jacobson, Isaac, Mike 765, excuse me, Damian Drain, and Zach with the $2. Where do you send the keg? Oh man, I'm a little bit old to be drinking a keg, but maybe one day I'll get a keg floating in the ice water again. I do have a nice frosty 805 opened that I am enjoying right now, but it'll probably be a light drinking night because I got a lot of talking to do and not much time for dumping beer down my throat. But this is for tonight. And cheers and thank you to everyone. Daniel Berry Sports Highlights, good to see you. Zombie Fighter 89, always happy to see you. I used that link you sent to me a few months back for Smackdown tonight. It worked like a charm, and thank God tonight was the final Smackdown on Fox, which means on the West Coast, I will no longer have to pull up an illegal stream if I want to watch it, because now they're heading over to the USA Network, and it will air live for me here on the West Coast. I'm ready for that. Good to see Denny down bad. We got Steven Harris. The Juliet is here with $2. Surefire bet Roman's back next week. Absolutely, he's back. It's the season premiere, and he was initially advertised, and they pulled him. Did you notice that? You haven't seen any Roman advertisements for the 13th edition of SmackDown since that first one, which means he's probably going to show up in that Cody and Solo cage match, and they're going to try to save him for more of a surprise, even though I think most fans are going to expect to see him there, whether he's advertised or not. Good to see Janine Pizzone and my boy Ronnie. We got Lee, the Lego fan, in the house as well. George Morris, appreciate the 5 from you. How are you doing, Greg? How is Tito? And happy birthday. How old are you? Will Vince McMahon documentary cover Ring Boy scandal? Be safe. I am great. Tito is great. I'm 47, and Vince McMahon will be, the Vince McMahon documentary will be covering the Ring Boy scandal. As a matter of fact, I've got a big update from Brandon Thurston about the Vince McMahon trailer, and there has been an early viewing, and they did break down a little bit of what we're going to see, and I'm going to read that entire report to you because it's really, really interesting, and I'm feeling a little bit better based on what I read today and what I'm going to talk about later. I'm feeling better about this documentary and its honesty. There's still going to be some problems and whatnot, but in terms of them maybe going easy on Vince McMahon, it doesn't really look like that's the case. They're getting into all of it, and that's good because I was a little bit worried. WWE doesn't have a producer credit or anything on this documentary, so it's not like they're pulling the strings or anything like that. This is probably going to be the real deal, and it's going to be interesting when this is airing on a streaming platform that also is the home to WWE's flagship show. It's going to be an interesting next couple of months after that doc drops on the 25th. Thank you for 2 more, Julia. I appreciate the birthday wish. And Joshua Aparicio dropping in the fabulous $10 drop there. Happy birthday, Greg. Hey, I never knew you were wrestling tonight against Apollo Crews. You look jacked. Suck, you lost tonight. You'll get him next time. I know they dusted off the old Jeff Hardy and Karrion Kross finish, that quick finish with Giovanni Vinci showing up on SmackDown tonight for his debut and got beat quickly by Apollo Crews. And when I saw Apollo Crews in the ring, it initially upset me. And I started to tweet my displeasure that WWE is only using Crews. They're bringing him out of catering only for situations like this just to get beat by a new guy. But then he wins. And I'm like, okay, never mind. I'm sure there will be a return match, and this is an attempt to be some sort of direction creatively that will take, Vinci to great heights. I just don't see, I think a lot of people might be unsure if that's the proper way to start someone out, especially when you think about how he left Imperium with Gunther just kicking his ass right out of there. Now he's coming back, losing the way he did. I don't know, not maybe the way you want to start things off on your SmackDown career, but we'll have to see. Thank you, Ahmed, for the super chat. Oh my God, it's 3:16 right now in the UK, and I caught your birthday stream. Right on, let's fucking go. My favorite wrestling YouTuber since 2016. Happy birthday, Greg. Thank you very much for that, Ahmed. I'm glad you're able to catch me at such an odd time. Thank you for being here, and I'm glad that you've been with me now for 8 years? That is crazy. David Brown, also happy to see you here as well. Thank you for that. Juliet is gifting out a commentary membership to Jacob A. Right on. We got Jacob hooked up with a membership. Also want to say hello to Leon Gore. We also have Elias in the house. Good to see Victor Cologne here. Shell Shock. Danny Huckins, your birthday is Monday. Happy early birthday to you, man. We've got Stephen Harris, I'm not sure if I got you yet, and Dave chiming in with $5 Canadian. Thank you so much for that, dude. Happy birthday. That closing segment on Dynamite was great, but I got to say I'm laughing at those tribal queefs online desperately trying to hate on it. I don't know how you could possibly hate on it. That shit was just amazing. We're going to talk about it. And Hangman Page is just so good at it. I mean, he's great at playing, kind of an unhinged crazy man. And the way he sat there so stone-faced as the fucking windows blew out of the house, drinking his beer or whatever it was. Oh my God, such good shit, man. On Wednesday night, we'll be talking about that one and what that can mean for the future, because I kind of feel like Hangman Page has got to win tomorrow. But how do you win, after you blow somebody's up? How do you lose when somebody blows your house up? But I almost think that the sequence of events that needs to happen is Hangman beats Swerve tomorrow somehow. Then Hangman is the one to take the title from Danielson, and then Swerve takes the title from Hangman. That's where I feel like it should go, but we will see. We've got the Juliet. 5 more from you. Thanks, dude. Hogan's an ass for comparing a situation with Chris Benoit on Logan Paul's podcast. That is in my notes, Juliet. We will be getting to that for sure. All right, I think that's knocks out the pleasantries for right now. I'm sure there are going to be more coming in. We will get back to the super chats in just a little bit, but we need to start off with some news, some wrestling news. Now, just to remind you, tomorrow night, be here. We're going to be watching All Out together. Sunday, there will be no classic watch-alongs. Normally, we're here on Sundays to do watch-alongs, but Sunday is the day that I'm celebrating my birthday with my family, so I will not be here on Sunday for that. But we will be here again on Monday. I think I'm going to do another Raw watch-along. Those have been fun. We had a great time last Monday doing it, so we are bringing back the old Monday Night Raw watch-alongs that we used to do back in like 2017, 2018, 2019. Back in my old apartment, bringing those back a few weeks here on the channel to see how they do. And so far, they've been fun. So we'll be back at it again on Monday. The only thing that will be different this week about the schedule is no watch along on Sunday. So just keep that in mind. In terms of the wrestling news that we have to get into tonight, I think we need to open up with this Vince McMahon Netflix docuseries. Now, we heard last week they finally announced a release date for this. It's going to be on September 25th on Netflix, and I believe they are releasing all 6 episodes at once. So this will not be like a weekly thing. I think you can view them all together at once if you want. And then yesterday, they released the trailer for the documentary. And the trailer was really interesting because it was about 2.5 minutes long. And the way the trailer was produced felt a lot like, like a WWE produced documentary. And even though in the brief trailer that we saw, they did acknowledge some of the scandals, the steroid stuff and some of the black eyes on Vince, it was... it also was heavily promoting him as a genius, billionaire, head of the wrestling world. And what my fear was that I mentioned when this was first announced last week, I said, I really hope that this isn't 5.5 episodes heaping praise on Vince. And then in the last 30 minutes of the last episode, they're going to talk about the bad shit. And that was my big fear. Also, was it Ben Simmons or Bill Simmons? It's Bill Simmons. And he kind of employs like an in-house historian in David Shoemaker, who we've seen on some various documentaries before. And there's been more than one time when I've listened to this dude and said to myself, he doesn't know what he's talking about at all. And my fear is that if he's going to be a part of writing this Vince McMahon history, that some of it's going to be inaccurate. But based on the trailer, it looks like they're going to address everything. And there was a really interesting report that came out today from Brandon Thurston of Post Wrestling. And he had a long write-up on this, or not very long, but some really interesting details about what we're going to see in the 6-part docuseries next month. And I want to read a little bit of this to you because it's really interesting. So this was courtesy of Brandon Thurston on Post Wrestling Today. And I quote, "We can exclusively share some details of the docuseries provided by a source who has pre-screened all 6 one-hour episodes." So they're going to be 1 hour each, 6 episodes, 6 hours of Vince McMahon's life. My God. Mr. McMahon, that's the title of the documentary, begins by noting that most interviews in the docuseries were conducted before McMahon's initial resignation, his return, WWE's merger into TKO, and the sex trafficking lawsuit filed by Janelle Grant, events that took place between 2022 and 2024. In the first episode, excuse me, excuse me, in the first episode, where'd I go? In the first episode, those events are touched on with brief clips featuring Wall Street Journal reporters Joe Palazzolo and Ted Mann, who broke the stories about multiple non-disclosure agreements McMahon made with women who worked for WWE and alleged they were targets of sexual misconduct by McMahon. Those subjects return in the last episode of the series. So it sounds like they jump in and acknowledge all of the shit that's going on with him, and then they transition into getting into his life story and then pick it back up at the end. That's kind of what it's telling you here. Goes on to say, the report goes on to say that the initial coverage in the first few minutes of the first episode, the docuseries moves into a largely linear history of McMahon's life and career, with the rest of the first episode focusing on his childhood, his early days in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, and eventually his purchase of the company from his father, Vincent J. McMahon. As the episodes go on, the narrative delves into Hulkamania, the creation of WrestleMania, how WrestleMania 3 marked the peak of that period. It then explores the decline of Hulk Hogan and the company in the early 90s before going into detail on the various scandals that made headlines in 1992. The series covered the steroid and ring boy scandals. In an interview with New York Post reporter Phil Mushnick, who covered the scandals at the time, is included. Archival footage appears of the late Tom Cole, the former ring boy and alleged target of sexual abuse, who spoke out against the company. Clips from the infamous episode of the Phil Donahue Show that covered sexual harassment allegations in the WWF are shown. If you've never seen that episode of the Phil Donahue Show from back in the day with Vince and Bruno and Meltzer and superstar Billy Graham, it's wild. Like, it has to be seen to be believed that Vince even agreed to go on and do that. But if you've never seen that, check it out. It includes archival clips of Rita Chatterton, the former referee who accused McMahon of raping her in 1986, are also included. Tony Atlas appears in a new interview for the series, where he claims he was groped in the locker room by Pat Patterson. When asked why he didn't speak up, Atlas laughed and indicated that McMahon wouldn't have cared. I can believe that. WWE doesn't have a production credit, which confirms our report from last week. WWE's only on-screen credit is for archival footage, along with others who are credited. However, notably, this observation is based on a pre-screening version of the content, and the credits could appear differently in the final edit. When the documentary was originally announced in 2020, WWE Studios was set to be a co-producer, according to comments from WWE President Nick Khan at the time. Since that announcement, news of sexual misconduct allegations broke. McMahon resigned, returned, merged WWE with UFC, and then resigned again. All or any of which may have weighed heavily into how this project unfolded. Yeah, no shit. The opening credits give Chris Smith's Library Films the main production credit. Ringer Films gets an association with production credit. Names seen in the on-screen credits include Smith, Bill Simmons, Zara Duffy, Abay Sofsky, Matt Maxson, and David Shoemaker. Shoemaker also appears in the trailer Netflix released on Thursday. Yes, he does. Others we can confirm appear in the series in new interviews, many of whom are seen in the trailer. In addition to those already mentioned are Hogan, Shane McMahon, Linda McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, Paul Levesque, Paul Heyman, Bret Hart, Cody Rhodes, and The Undertaker, along with Wendy Richter, Eric Bischoff, Steve Austin, Dwayne Johnson, and John Cena. So that's some interesting news. We're not going to have to wait long. This is 19 days away from being released. So just a little over 2 weeks, we're all going to get a look at this documentary ourselves, or docuseries ourselves, and we can make our own judgments. Based on this report and this early pre-screening of the docuseries, it sounds like any of these fears we had about them trying to maybe protect Vince McMahon, maybe not be as honest as they should, or offer all the information that they should, holding back on things, that type of stuff, doesn't appear like it's going to be the case here. This sounds like it's going to be a pretty damning docuseries, and they are not going to be pulling any punches, and they are really going to outline and chronicle all of the great things that Vince McMahon did, but also all of his terrible, shitty behavior. And Conrad Thompson claimed that there are some in the company that aren't happy about it and are considering it a double shovel burial of Vince McMahon. And I guess, citing the fact that, Simmons is speaking to Shoemaker and Meltzer about this stuff. But I mean, is there anybody out there that's really going to have sympathy for Vince McMahon? There are actually people in the company that have seen this or might see this and feel like it's a hit piece or it's a burial. The dude deserves to be buried. He absolutely deserves to be buried. I mean, some of these accusations are so troubling that you almost have to wonder if it's real. Like, you can't even believe some of the things you were reading, some of those text message screenshots that were saved that came from Vince, some of the things that he said. Tonight's Smackdown on Fox was the last Smackdown on Fox. I was at the first episode. The first Smackdown on Fox 5 years ago in October of 2019. And that was the night, of course, that Brock Lesnar squashed Kofi Kingston in seconds. Going into that show, I had a pretty good feeling that Brock Lesnar was going to win the championship. But it's how he won the title, how he won that fast, that I think really rubbed a lot of fans the wrong way. And then when you read the details of that lawsuit and Vince McMahon naming certain sex toys after certain wrestlers, kind of makes you look at that match a lot differently now and make it even worse than it was when it first happened. And I don't really, when I hear that there are people in WWE that are considering it a burial, well, it might be, but it's certainly not unfair. I mean, nothing in here that they're going to talk about is going to be like out of bounds or unfair to Vince. Vince McMahon is a horrible human being. And that's the thing about Vince. People, talk about Vince McMahon, the character, and Vince McMahon, the person. And one thing I'm concerned about this documentary is if they try to push the narrative that, Vince got caught up in the Vince McMahon character and maybe use that as an excuse for his deplorable behavior. Well, he got caught up in the character and he started blurring the lines of reality and fiction and, got ahead of himself and got too caught up in it. And that's just not going to fly, because Vince McMahon, the character, is an asshole, but Vince McMahon, the real person, is also an asshole. That's been well documented. And I just don't think that I was worried that if the documentary tried to push that narrative, I'm like, come on. But based on what we've read here in this early kind of report about the pre-screening and what we saw in the trailer, I think in the trailer, they do mention, that difference between the man and the character. But Vince, even himself, over the years, throughout the years, has talked about how he's very much like his character. I mean, how many times have we heard that played out, tired, repeated quote about wrestlers? It's just me with the volume turned way up. I mean, that's really all Vince was, just like Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, and a lot of guys that made that work. A lot of times your character on TV is a very big part of who you are as a person. So I'm not going to accept that excuse. Vince McMahon wants to, what was Vince's excuse in the 80s? He hadn't developed any Vince McMahon character yet. What was his excuse for all of the shitty things he did when he first bought the company from his dad? He wasn't caught up in the Mr. McMahon character yet. So Vince McMahon's entire life has been fucked up. And I think they're going to get really into that as well, especially in that early part of the docuseries. I'm sure they're going to touch on his childhood, and weird things happened to him. We know that. That's easily observed by just the way Vince is. You can tell that something happened to that boy when he was young. But this is interesting information, and it's promising information, because I think a lot of fans, myself included, were interested in this docuseries, but in the back of our mind worried about, is it going to paint Vince in the most honest picture possible? And I really wasn't sure if it was, and I'm feeling a little bit better about it now. Now, we're not going to know for sure until this thing hits Netflix and we all watch it and we all make our own judgments, and we'll be up here doing a full review on the whole thing, I'm sure. But based on what I read today, I'm feeling better about it than I did, maybe last week when I was more concerned that this wasn't going to be honest enough. And now I'm feeling a little bit better about that, especially when you hear things, hear rumblings of people in the company not happy about it because they think it's a burial. Who the hell out there, can sit there with a straight face and have sympathy for Vince McMahon? That's crazy. That's crazy, y'all. Transferring heat, very good point. Social media will be interesting that week. And you're always going to have, the Vince McMahon apologists and things like that, and people like that, and people who just don't give a shit about any of this behavior, but I don't think anybody's going to be too sympathetic towards Vince once this comes out. Boy, they really raked him over the coals and buried him good. Good. It's called accountability. It's called karma. It's called getting what you deserve. If he's that horrible of a person, you're going to be offended for him because a documentary, exposed his shitty behavior and fucked up life that he's led. I got no sympathy for him. Makes no sense to have sympathy for him. So I'm ready for it to come out. It should be interesting. And one of the biggest concerns I had when we talked about this last week, when we got the news broke, is that I didn't really like this docuseries coming out because Vince McMahon's story is nowhere near done being told yet. He is in the middle right now of this shitstorm, and he's got this sex trafficking lawsuit. He was served a federal search warrant, and they searched his house and raided his home and took shit. Janelle Grant was asked to pause her lawsuit so the Department of Justice could investigate Vince McMahon. This is a guy that could very, very well be going to jail. This is a man that could very well die in jail. And we're releasing this whole docuseries on his life when the biggest chapter is yet to be written. So that's the one thing that's weird about all this, is that we're going to learn all this about Vince McMahon, and then we're finally, all the shoes are going to drop, and we're going to get some sort of a conclusion, unless Vince McMahon plans to use all of his money to litigate this until he dies, and postpone, and with continuations and whatnot. We will see. But either way, his reputation is absolutely destroyed, as it should be. But when you're that vile, do people like Vince McMahon really care if his reputation is destroyed? He's always been defiant, even at the very end there when he came out on Smackdown, basically just as a message to his shareholders and the board that he's not going anywhere. This guy does not give a shit. He can have the worst things. He can have the worst accusations come out about him, and he still wants to be on TV and be a part of it. Totally shameless. Shameless. And I'm just glad I don't have to see his dumb fucking face on TV anymore. It's been nice without him. But we're going to see a lot of Vince. We're going to see 6 hours of Vince in about 2 weeks, and we'll be here to talk about it. Let me see what else we got. AEW held their all-out media call yesterday. And there is one interesting quote in here from Tony Khan I want to read when he was asked about AEW's media rights deal. Now, we've joked about the media rights deal on the podcast here a lot lately because it feels like every week we come up here for the podcast, I have the same thing to say. I say, hey, the media rights deal is imminent. It should be signed any minute now. Any minute now. I think I've been saying any minute now since April. So here we are. Now, I've never been any less worried that this deal is going to get done. I 1,000,000,000% know that it is, but it is weird how we keep hearing, oh, it's almost done, it's almost done, it's almost done, and then it just delay. So it'll be nice to get this done just so we can stop talking about it. But when Tony Khan was asked on the media call about the deal, here's what he had to say, and I quote, "It's a really exciting time for AEW. We are having great conversations. There have been a lot of reports, and a lot of them have been pretty accurate about the status of the media deal between between AEW and WBD being something that has been a very productive and ongoing conversation that we're still working on. There are a lot of details. You mentioned the future of the TV deal, which is something we all want, AEW on TBS and TNT. It's great to be wanted by TBS and TNT. I feel very fortunate that after being here for 5 years, there is still this great appetite and desire to keep AEW on these networks. It's a mutual thing. We love Warner Brothers Discovery." Tony Khan then followed that up with a tweet yesterday that said AEW is on the 1-yard line with a lot of stuff in their future. So sounds like this deal is imminent. And what I've said 5 or 6 times when talking about this, I don't really care about the financials. This deal, if it makes AEW a profitable company, great for them, happy for them. But as a fan, that's not my priority. My priority as a fan is not if they're profitable. Tony Khan's a billionaire. Now, if AEW turning a profit was dependent on their success, then yes, I would care. But Tony Khan's a billionaire. You know, for a fan like me, I don't really give a shit if they're turning a profit or not. I hope that they do, and I think that they will once they get the new deal done. But that's not my main concern. My main concern is to be able to easily access their content, and because I really don't enjoy slapping down $50 a pop for these pay-per-views, especially when they're just 2 weeks apart. Just bought All Out today for tomorrow on YouTube. It would be great if they could get a streaming deal done. Somewhere to consume their product on a streaming platform. Streaming is the future. Tony Khan seems to know that. He even hinted as much in some of his tweets that hopefully a streaming deal is included, because if they announce this new media rights deal and it's just a re-upping of another 5-year deal for Collision and Dynamite to be on TNT and TBS, and they get a rights fee increase that moves them into profitable territory, and no announcement of any future streaming deal for pay-per-views, for video library stuff, or anything like that, as a fan, I'm going to consider that a disappointment. It might be good from the company if they get enough money and they can, become profitable. But if you don't have a streaming deal, I think that's the next step. You don't want to wait another 5 years until you can get some sort of a streaming deal. So I would like to think that these delays that are taking so long is because that's the portion of this they're trying to work out. I could be wrong. They could announce this deal and there's going to be no streaming included at all. But I really hope that there is, because that would take AEW, I think, to that next level as well, making sure that they're really getting their brand out there and putting themselves on platforms that's easily accessible for their audience to get to. And I think streaming, in addition to the cable TV shows, and hopefully something with the pay-per-views can be tied in there as well, that would be ideal. And if that's what they work out and that's what they announce, then all of this waiting has been worth it, because I think that forking out the $50 is just not something they're going to be able to forever do. You know what I mean? There's going to have to be something else worked out for these pay-per-views. And that's going to, I think, increase the amount of people who see these things. If you can get a streaming deal, with an HBO Max, to where we can either watch the pay-per-views for free with the subscription, or you get the pay-per-views at a discounted price, that is going to increase the amount of people who watch your pay-per-views. So for me, it's nothing but a win-win. The only thing that would be a loss on a streaming is, the pay-per-view revenue losses they might suffer by moving to a streaming platform, which might be part of these financial negotiations. Tony Khan trying to offset that loss, with the Max deal or whatever. I don't know. I have no idea. These are just guesses. But every time there's a delay, every time Tony Khan says we're right on the doorstep of it, we're on the 1-yard line, the deal is imminent, we still don't get the deal done. So once it's announced, and I believe that it will, just have some streaming capabilities in there, and I'll be a happy AEW fan for it. Speaking of AEW, they've got a lawsuit. WWE and AEW are both dealing with lawsuits right now. This one here with Kevin Kelly and the Tate twins is convoluted and a little bit confusing, and I don't know if it's really going to amount to anything, but at the same time, I'm not a lawyer. So Kevin Kelly, as we know, was let go from AEW earlier this year, around spring, I think March, because he was kind of mouthing off. He went on like a Twitter tirade on the weekend of Revolution, and I knew something was up then. I was reading all this shit in full time. Seemed really pissed at Ian Riccaboni for some reason, who everybody just loves, and his time in AEW was sketchy and had a lot of issues, even though he was there for a really short time. So he was let go back in March. The Tate twins, also known as the Boys, were also let go. They've jumped into this lawsuit. They've got this lawyer, Stephen P. New, representing them. And was he one of the lawyers that was involved in the Punk and Bucks stuff? Because I know we've seen his name. We've seen Stephen P. New's name recently in the news, right? So he's represented some wrestlers before. And this lawsuit filed on AEW is for lots of things, defamation and I think wrongful termination. But the defamation claim is the juiciest. And this is all stemming from the personal issues between Kevin Kelly and Ian Riccaboni, and Kevin Kelly going off on Twitter during the weekend of Revolution. Now, if you read through the lawsuit, if you actually want to take the time to read through this fucking mess, you can, but it's loaded with inaccuracies, misspellings, and a lot of just mistakes in the lawsuit, just in, some of the claims that it's making. And Kelly, who's never been really revered as the, sharpest tool in the shed, lost a severance package from AEW as well because he didn't sign the form. And he claims in the lawsuit, I just didn't sign some form. I'm like, you didn't sign some form. You were supposed to sign some. You didn't sign it. They took it back. You can't blame them for that. That's you. That's on you, man. Got to read the fine print. You got to do what you're supposed to do. You've had contracts before. You should do all this stuff. So he even lost his severance package because he didn't sign the form properly. So Stephen P. New, the lawyer, he spoke to House of Kayfabe podcast this week and talked about this lawsuit a little bit. And there's just one paragraph I will read you. There's so much to unpack, and I refuse to unpack this whole thing because I think at the end of the day, it's not really going to amount to a victory for Kevin Kelly, especially when whenever you're going up against a legal battle with a billionaire. This guy's got unlimited funds. They'll just string along in the court. WWE did this. Nobody could beat them in anything, because they had they had a pretty strong lawyer and they were, infinitely funded. And I think with Tony Khan as well, the little bit of the lawsuit that I read, without having much legal knowledge, and I'm certainly not a lawyer or familiar with the courtroom practices, or anything like that, I don't see where they're going to find success in the lawsuit. But the lawyer thinks that they've got a leg to stand on. Here's what he had to say on House of Kayfabe's podcast. And I quote, "The defamation claim against Ian Riccaboni stems from Kevin Kelly enjoying the movie Sound of Freedom, and he tweeted some about Sound of Freedom. Kevin says that the movie moved him and that he liked it. And not long after that, Riccaboni on Discord and others started saying things that, well, you must be a QAnon conspiracist if you believe that kind of thing, and what have you. It seemed to Kevin Kelly like his relationship deteriorated with AEW after this exchange with Riccaboni. Now, we only know Kevin's side of this right now. The reason for the discovery process is to question these witnesses and to request documents and that kind of thing. That's the only way that the truth is arrived at. It is to go through the discovery process. You must request emails. You must request text. You request social media platform information, posting and messaging, and that kind of thing to get to whether or not someone meant to hurt someone. Was there a reason with 9 members of the announce team that Riccaboni was engaging in the Klingon method of advancement where you kill off your rivals? We don't know the answers to any of those questions just yet. The only thing I can say is that Kelly perceived being treated differently by AEW, by HR, by the people in the home office after his dust up with Riccaboni, and then resulting in that first week in March being let go by AEW only about 9 months into a 3-year-long contract. And he went on to say a lot of other things. But when you think about releases in wrestling in both companies and any company throughout the years, there's a lot more sketchy releases than this. How many times has WWE just seemingly released someone for no reason? So Kevin Kelly, they have a reason. When they talk about the discovery here, Kevin Kelly's got receipts too. He's got receipts of his own fucking Twitter tirades and his own, Twitter tweet storms or whatever. And he's got, and he can do whatever he wants. It doesn't matter if he reads Babylon Bee or any of the other stupid ass fucking sites that he tends to like to read. You can get a good idea of who Kevin Kelly is and what are the things that he probably believes. But that has no bearing on whether or not he's a good television announcer or wrestling announcer or not. I was actually happy to see him when he first turned up, in Collision. But there has been, Kevin Kelly's done some shoot interviews over the years, and I've never had really a problem with him. But if people think he's a prick or an asshole, I can see it. I can see how he does come off that way. But I like Kevin Kelly. I remember him from the 90s. I thought it was really cool to see Kevin Kelly and Jim Ross reunited on Collision. Jim Ross went on to call this lawsuit frivolous, by the way, which his lawyer did not appreciate. So it didn't sound like, Kevin Kelly was really endearing himself to anyone in the company when he was there. It was just not a good fit. Sometimes that happens. I've been in the restaurant business my whole life. Sometimes you have an employee come in who's perfectly capable. It's just they ain't meshing. Something ain't right. You hire somebody, they're not they're just not meshing well with the other employees there. The fit, it's a square hole or round peg type of fit, and sometimes it's like, there's really nothing wrong with how you do your job. You're just not a fit here, and and that's the case in any line of work, I would assume, no matter what you do. And with Kevin Kelly's contract, I don't see this amounting to anything. Maybe he'll get some big settlement out of this, maybe, but I just don't think so, But again, I'm not the person. Go talk to, people who are knowledgeable in this type of thing and see if he actually legally has any sort of case here or maybe a leg to stand on or whatnot. But I just, based on all of the mess since March of Kevin Kelly and all the bad feelings there. And don't forget about the Tate twins too, who had some issues on their way out the door. So, if anything, I think worst case scenario, it's going to be exactly what I'm about to talk about in the WWE lawsuit. Maybe Tony Khan has to pay a settlement, but probably not even that. I think between the current lawsuits going on in AEW and WWE has a better chance of paying out money than AEW does. That's just a guess. And speaking of that WWE lawsuit, there is a lawsuit filed against WWE for the American Nightmare trademark. So here's another report from Brandon Thurston of Pro Wrestling Today, talking about this lawsuit that was filed by punk rock musician Wesley Eisold, who apparently owns this trademark. So the article reads, punk rock musician Wesley Eisold filed a lawsuit on Wednesday against Cody Rhodes, WWE, and WWE's main merchandising partner, Fanatics. The complaint, filed in federal court in California, alleges trademark infringement, breach of contract, and intentional interference with contractual relations. Eisold is the lead singer and co-founder of the band American Nightmare, which has been active on and off since 1998 and toured as recently as 2023. Eisold holds a trademark registered in 2016 for American Nightmare for use in music, clothing, and entertainment services, according to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. In March 2019, Cody Rhodes applied to register the trademark The American Nightmare for wrestling-related activities. Eisold, who had registered a similar trademark earlier, opposed Rhodes' application. The parties eventually agreed to a settlement in March 2021 to resolve the dispute, ultimately allowing Rhodes to register the trademark. At that time, Rhodes was under contract to AEW. He later returned to WWE in 2022, where he continued to use the trademark. Under the settlement terms, Rhodes was allowed to use the American Nightmare on his merchandise under the condition that such items prominently used Rhodes' name, likeness, or wrestling-related imagery in a size at least 75% larger than the American Nightmare text. So a lot of conditions here. The settlement agreement was provided as an exhibit to Eisold's complaint. Additionally, Rhodes agreed to a one-time payment to the musician of $30,000. Eisold now claims that Rhodes, WWE, and Fanatics have violated that agreement by selling merchandise items that fail to meet those earlier conditions. The complaint indicates that Eisold's legal representatives contacted Rhodes' lawyer in 2022 about the infringing Crown t-shirt design, but didn't receive a response. More recently, in April and May of 2024, respectively, the Musicians Council set separate cease and desist letters to Fanatics and Rhodes. Eisold's complaint says on May 31st, his attorney received a letter from WWE that indicated that Fanatics referred the dispute to the wrestling company. Other than that, the plaintiff says he's received no other correspondence from the defendants. Last paragraph here is important. In addition to recovering attorney's fees, Eisold is seeking damages of at least $150,000, as well as treble damages of up to $300,000 related to federal trademark infringement. Okay, so all that tells me is that Cody Rhodes being able to use the American Nightmare is in no way, shape, or form in jeopardy. All this means, worst case scenario, absolute worst case scenario, WWE's got to pay this feller every dime he's asking for. That's it. Worst case scenario, and I'm talking the worst possible outcome for WWE in this lawsuit is they have to pay $450,000. That would be like me or you having to give somebody $2. No big deal. dropping the fucking bucket. I do not give two shits, two turds, a rat ass in hell if WWE's got to fork out $450,000 to some asshole. I don't care. So when I first saw the lawsuit and started reading it, I'm like, oh God, is he going to have to, like, how weird would that be? Like when WWE had to change their names because of the fucking pandas. I'm like, God, tell me, like, after all this time, Cody's not going to have to stop using American Nightmare. And then once you read it, I'm like, oh, all this fucker wants is damages. So fine, pay him his fucking damages. Who cares? So it sounds like all is going to be fine, but it sounds like they were in violation. Like when you read what the conditions were, and then you read why they're being sued and where they have specifically violated these conditions, it's there. It's there. I think there's more to this lawsuit than the AEW one. I think WWE is going to pay out and just make this thing go away, where AEW will probably wind up winning. So we will see, but that's not a big deal. Who cares? You know, WWE, just take care of it. You guys have got so much money. Protect your top star. Protect his trademark. And if this fucker needs $450,000, pay him. You got the money. You got the money. What's next on my list? What a crazy batch of news. Oh, we got to get into Hulk Hogan. Yes, we got to talk about Hulk, or how does he say his name? Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan. That's how he says it. But before we do that, let me go over here and thank some people for some more comments here. Where did I leave off? There's Zane G. Thank you for the $2, my friend. The best arson skit, Randy Orton or Hangman Page? Yeah, Randy Orton burning down the Wyatt compound, right? I liked Hangman's better, but in terms of like the better produced one, they were both tremendous. They both looked really, really awesome. But I think Randy Orton might have been a little bit more spectacular just with the production of it. Hangman was just, his was a whole different vibe, and it was so awesome. I don't know, man. That's a tough one. I might go Hangman is the one I liked more because of the personal nature of it. Randy Orton's dealing with Bray Wyatt and Sister Abigail and like a grave and spooky shit. You know, Hangman and Swerve stuff is kind of real. So I think I liked Hangman's better, but they're both awesome. Victor Cologne, thank you, man. Appreciate the $5. Happy birthday, Greg. Just what people are saying about the Vince doc, like how he messed up. How Vince makes me sick. Yeah, well, we're going to be watching it together, man, and thank you for that. Holy shit. Look at Nicole Lensing. Nicole Lensing is in here gifting out 10, count them, Good Mic Work Commentaries memberships. Holy shit, Nicole. She's hooked up. Elias, Joe Shepis, Chuck J, Wee Wee Almighty, Smitty, Timothy Bates, MH Nova, Phil Wilson, Lee T, and Sonic Plays are all members courtesy of our friend Nicole Lensing. Nicole, you are the best. Cannot thank you enough for that. Hooking up some channel members here. Thank you so much, man. Joshua Aparicio, thanks for the $2. If only Vince ate more chicken tendies to be happy. You got to eat them tendies, man. Got to eat them tendies. Psycho45 is here. Appreciate the 2 from you. Enjoy some of the green gimmick. Oh, I've been doing that all day, my friend, but hell yeah, thank you. So very much for that. Isaac gifting out memberships to Ahmed. Thank you guys. You guys are just buying people memberships. Juliet buying a membership for Simply Unknown. Well, welcome to the 15 or so new channel members we've taken on in the last 5 minutes. That's pretty cool. Very awesome. Thank you. The nickname is trash anyway. Let the musician have it. Well, they're not going to do that. The nickname is not trash. I like the nickname. I think American Nightmare is awesome because of who his dad was, the American Dream. If you can't find awesomeness in that, then I don't know what kind of wrestling fan you really are. But I got no problem with the American Nightmare gimmick. I like it. I like his logo. It just looks awesome. Everything looks awesome. Cody's awesome. We're big Cody fans on this channel, if you can't tell. You know who we're not big fans of? Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan. Okay, so this fucking asshole was a guest on Logan Paul's Impulsive podcast this week. And unlike Dominic Mysterio's appearance on Impulsive, which was legendary, this one was stupid. And I'm only going to single out one quote from Hulk Hogan, where I guess he's talking about his past and he's talking about his mistakes. And the mistakes he's made, the things that he's been recorded saying publicly, the shit show he's made of his life, in the last, decade or so or more, 2 decades now. And I guess when he's talking about I mean, he's owning up to the mistakes. He's like, I made mistakes in my life. And then he says, and I quote, if Chris Benoit can do the crap he did and the fans still love him, they're very forgiving. So he basically implies that he feels like he should be forgiven for all of the things he has done because, from his perspective, fans have forgiven Chris Benoit. I don't know what universe Hulk Hogan is living in, where this is something that he thinks has happened. Does he think that me and you guys, all y'all, have forgiven Chris Benoit? We're cool with him giving his son 3 Xanax and smothering him? Does he think we're cool with choking Nancy so hard that he snapped her spine in half? He thinks we're okay with that. We've put it behind us. It's all good. We've forgiven him. And because of that, he's confused why fans haven't forgiven him, even though he still does crazy numbers. I think a lot of fans don't even give a shit what he did, because he still has a line. He goes up do an autograph signing somewhere, line 2.5 miles long. I don't get it. I would understand, if Hulk Hogan had the same type of reputation that Mick Foley did, I'd line up to meet him too, because he's the Babe Ruth of wrestling. He's arguably the biggest star the business has ever had, and arguably the reason that we're sitting here talking about this stuff today, because of the success of that Hulk Hogan character in the 80s. But I don't want to meet him. I don't want to see him at all. So, and this idea, I mean, Hulk Hogan, first of all, is dumb. We all know that. I mean, this is a guy that finds it necessary to put HH next to all of his tweets, so we know it's him. So Hulk Hogan's not the sharpest tool in the shed either. Not the brightest bulb in the drawer. Not the sharpest spoon in the cupboard. I don't know. He's not the tenderest McNugget in the box. And the fact that that's something that he thinks is just kind of laughable. And it's just like, God, can this guy say any more stupid shit? Like, the amount of stupid shit that he constantly says is just being piled on and piled on. He is a pathological, chronic liar. And I think part of that is he really lies. And then part of that is that's how he's remembering his own history. Sometimes I really think that he believes these things that he says happened. Sometimes I think he really believes that he was offered a spot in Metallica. I think he thinks that. It didn't happen, but I think he believes it happened. So Hogan, trying to keep track of the dumb things that he said is something that's going to keep you busy forever. And the only potential reason I could think of that he might think this, and I put this up on social media, on Twitter, I said, I'm going to go out on a limb and say something that you guys haven't seen yet. Has anybody actually come out there, other than really, really depraved assholes, have come out and defended this dickhead at all for these comments? And I'm like, no, probably not. So I'm going to do it. And I'm going to cite Hogan's stupidity as the reason that he says this. And I'm also going to cite the stupidity of Twitter, or X, that horrible platform that is just a cesspool of idiotic fucking wrestling fans. Hateful, angry, drooling, uneducated, virgin pricks. They're everywhere on that app. You can't avoid them. They are as dumb as a day is long. They say the dumbest shit, and it is an absolute cesspool of insanity. On that website, you guys have all seen, I have too, we've all seen pro Chris Benoit posts. You know the ones. You should separate the performer from the guy, and he should be in the Hall of Fame. And I don't know how you can separate the performer from the guy that snapped his wife's spine in half. I don't even know how you can make that argument as a decent human being who went to school, speaks English, and can dress themselves. How can you possibly come to that conclusion? That we should be able to separate Benoit as a wrestler from Benoit as the person. No, we shouldn't. No, we shouldn't. No, we shouldn't. Now, if you choose to go back and watch Chris Benoit matches, great. We've done that. We've done it on watch-alongs. His matches were awesome. He was a great wrestler. Nobody's ever denied that. But that kind of goes all goes out the window when you commit the horrible crimes that he committed. And Benoit is the biggest tragedy. They're going to touch on the Benoit stuff, by the way, in the Vince docuseries. We saw a little bit of that in the trailer. And that still is, the biggest tragedy that really, really did rock WWE to their foundation. And I've always believed that it's the Benoit tragedies that gave us the Fruity Pebble Barney John Cena that we got. That was the direction they needed to go in. Fans were flipping their lids and losing their shit. But I'm like, all you got to do is open your eyes and observe what's happening here. Look at what happened to them. Most companies wouldn't be able to survive that. So they had to take a sharp right turn and TVPG, be a little bit more wholesome, have a top star that's kid-friendly, fan-friendly, trying to change our image of being a company full of roid-raging maniacs who murder their families. That's what they had to do. It's totally understandable, but the Benoit tragedy is the ugliest thing to ever happen. And the fact that you have fans here that still use this as a debate, you actually have a pocket of fans that fully believe, as dumb as this sounds to say out loud, that Chris Benoit belongs in the Hall of Fame. And so, because of that, because of the rampant and aggressive stupidity that lives online, combined, wait, Tito. Tito was about to jump off the desk, but he got scared. So when you combine the aggressive stupidity of social media and specifically Twitter with the aggressive stupidity of a Hulk Hogan, really, really stupid things are going to happen and really, really stupid things are going to be said. So a lot of people jumped down Hulk Hogan's throat for that. I'm kind of chalking this up as unsurprising. This is the type of stuff that Hulk Hogan thinks. This is the way Hulk Hogan is. We saw this moron at the fucking Republican convention tearing off his fucking shirt. He's always going to kind of be this way. He's going to lie all the time. He's going to constantly lie. And he's going to constantly say and think really, really, really stupid shit. And so this didn't even bother me that much. Like a lot of people were just, raking him over the coals for this. And I'm like, of all the dumb shit Hulk Hogan has said, of all the dumb shit Hulk Hogan has done, this is pretty tame to me. Him believing that fans have forgiven Chris Benoit. And I'm like, well, if Hulk Hogan's, laying his fucking orange ass in his bed at night and scrolling through Twitter, I'm sure he's come across a few pro Benoit posts before. And so then he, in his head, comes to the conclusion that wrestling fans must have forgiven him. So that's all he really said there. I think it was more of a throwaway comment than anything else, but people have been bringing it up all week. And people were tagging me in the clip. Did you hear this, Good Mike Work? Can you believe what he said? Yeah, I can. I can absolutely believe that Hulk Hogan would say something stupid like that. Because the only thing Hulk Hogan has done in the last 15 years is say shit that is really, really stupid. This is routine stuff. This is every waking moment of this turd's life is what he does. So no big whoop to me. Wasn't offended. I know who Hulk Hogan is. If you know who he is, you're not offended. I'm like, well, he's going to say stupid shit, so just let him. I mean, what else can you do? I mean, at this point, other than, fans basically all know where they stand on Hogan, and when you have the fans that, I was a big Hogan fan. When I was a kid, I grew up to him. I grew up to Hogan. I watched him beat the Iron Sheik. I had a Hulk Hogan birthday cake for my 10th birthday. I had his action figures, man. I was born right down the road from where WrestleMania 3 took place. I mean, Hogan was a huge deal to me as a kid. And I would have loved nothing better than to grow up and as an adult continuing to love him. I would have loved it, but he just threw his, not to mention his sketchy and, kind of shady political backstage dealings. That's kind of understandable because everybody has that. I mean, Austin and, all the greats have had their share of throats that they've stepped on. So I can give that a pass, but then when he retired, started that Hogan Knows Best show, his kids went to hell, his kids went to shit, ruined his marriage. All of a sudden he's acting like he's a 22-year-old kid. This is a guy that should have been able to enjoy the fruits of his labors, take all the money and success he made and had, and ride off into the sunset as the Babe Ruth of pro wrestling with all of this respect. but then came the racist tirades, the sex tapes, the family dysfunction, the kid his son paralyzing a kid, and going to jail, his marriage crumbling, his crazy hot mess of a fucking daughter. Everything about this guy's life was just one big fucking shit show. And I blame, reality TV for part of this. And the other part is, just the human being that Hulk Hogan is. But I really would have loved it as a fan my age to be able to remember Hulk Hogan fondly. Like I said, if only Hulk Hogan had the reputation of a Mick Foley or, somebody in wrestling who, didn't make an ass of themselves, and also didn't say hateful shit and wasn't a goddamn idiot. That would be nice. I would have loved to be able to love and appreciate Hulk Hogan as a 47-year-old man, but I just don't. So this is one minor stupid thing that Hulk Hogan has said in a sea of much more serious stupid things. And I wasn't even that offended by it, to be honest. I'm like, that's pretty in line with what Hulk Hogan thinks and what Hulk Hogan says. Hey, here's some good news. Transitioning from a wrestler I hate to a wrestler I love. Bret the Hitman Hart will be on Monday Night Raw this Monday in Calgary. So Smackdown tonight was in Edmonton, Alberta. Monday's Raw will be in Calgary. Last week on Raw, we did see that I forgot who it even was now. Was it Lyra Valkyrie and somebody else? And I think they were beaten down by Pure Fusion Collective, right? And then Lyra's like, oh, I've got an idea for next week. And I'm like, okay, Natalia's coming back. Welcome back, Natalia. By the way, speaking of Natalia, I want you to stop what you're doing right now. Stop everything. Go to Natalia's Twitter page. Look at that picture of her and Beth Phoenix. Oh, wait. Go on. You've done it? Just look at it. You're welcome. So anyway, Bret Hart is going to be on Monday Night Raw this Monday. And according to our friend Ibu of Wrestle Purist, he is saying that there's going to be no Punk on Raw this week, and Bret Hart will be involved mostly with Sami Zayn. So that means Bret and Gunther being in the ring together. Bret never did get a chance to win his belt back from Shawn Michaels. Why don't we just book Bret and Gunther for the main event of Raw? Bret will put him in the sharpshooter in a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Gunther will be squealing like a pig. Bret will be the new world heavyweight champion. I hope they do that. But I think Bret being involved with Sami is going to be extremely wholesome and extremely nice to see, and hopefully it won't be too gnarly. I'm worried about Sami getting beat down by Gunther and Bret having to stand there. I mean, who knows? Bret can't, at this age, cannot do anything physical, I wouldn't think, but it might be a little bit fun if, Gunther hit him with a chop or something. I don't know. It'll be fun to see Bret Hart on Raw this Monday in Calgary. Also, we have some interesting news from WrestleVotes. So they tweeted this out yesterday about WWE's upcoming primetime special on NBC. And I quote, WWE is set to announce a live primetime special on NBC in the next few days. While the location remains unknown, sources say tickets are going to go on sale next Friday. We've heard some internal speculation about a Saturday night in December. This will be WWE's first primetime NBC special since August 2nd, 2008. WrestleVotes then followed up with a tweet today that indicated that it would in fact be the return of Saturday night's main event. So that's kind of cool, but I don't really give a shit about it. I'm slightly intrigued. Now, when they tried to bring this back years ago in that 2008 or whatever, I hated those. Those were just primetime commercials for WWE's product. They were going to be on a network station like they used to be back in the day, primetime NBC, lots of outside eyeballs on that normally wouldn't be watching wrestling, and they kind of wanted to give them kind of like a glorified house show with some fun moments and shit. Here's what we do here in WWE. That might have been the time that, wasn't it one of those shows where Austin like stunned every McMahon member? That type of shit. And that just doesn't interest me. Having some watered down modern version of Saturday night's main event isn't something I really give a shit about. So if they're going to do this now, I hope that Triple H treats it better. And I think it would be great if they actually had some sort of like throwback type of intro, maybe Obsession by Animotion. I mean, they're paying for music now. It's not out of the ordinary for WWE to pony up for some music. So paying for the rights for that song or bringing back their own custom song that they made for Saturday Night's Main Event back in the day that they started using around 88, that would also be a lot of fun. But apparently it is going to be a Saturday Night's Main Event sometime in December, and it's going to be prime time, not 11:30 at night like it used to be back in the day after the 11 o'clock news, filling in for Saturday Night Live. So this is going to be a Saturday night prime time episode. It'll probably only be an hour, and I don't know. I don't know what to expect. We'll see. I guess it's probably going to be co-branded with Raw and SmackDown. So we'll keep our eye on that news, and when we get a location set for that. WWE this week has also been signing some people to Legends deals, and they might be going on a little bit of a Legends deal signing spree here. And one could speculate that they might be trying to get a lot of Legends signed up and inked up because there might be some language in these deals that prevents them from talking shit about Vince McMahon, is what I can think. I mean, maybe they're trying to get a handle on the expected negative press that the Vince McMahon documentary is going to get. When the docuseries comes out, it's going to be the talk of the fucking town, which means a lot of podcasters like myself or a lot of interviewers are going to be contacting former wrestlers who worked closely with Vince McMahon to get comments on this. What do you remember of this? Did you ever see Vince do anything like this? Something to think about, that I wouldn't be surprised if WWE might be going around maybe trying to sign up some Attitude Era stars to Legends deals just so they can't go on these podcasts and spill any more tea on Vince McMahon. Especially, it's kind of like the Me Too thing. Once a few people have the courage to speak up, it's like the floodgates open. So if that docuseries is really going to reveal some really, really ugly shit and maybe be even more shocking than we're expecting it to be, that means everybody's going to want to capitalize on that and the numbers that's creating. And I could see a lot of people who do interviews or podcasters like myself or YouTubers contacting a lot of former wrestlers to come on, do an interview so they can talk about Vince McMahon. And so maybe and I'm sure there is language in these Legends deals that you can't talk bad or you're going to gag order on this shit or whatever. So that's that's me wildly speculating, because that's what I like to do. Speculate. I don't know for sure. This is just a thought. This is just speculation that maybe if you start reading more and more of these Legends are being signed up to deals quickly, makes you wonder if maybe the Vince McMahon stuff has something to do with that. We'll have to see. I'm sure it feels like WWE might be, how you like board up your windows before a hurricane? So this might be them boarding up their windows. They're like, all right, we got to batten down the hatches here because we're going to have a shitstorm hitting us at the end of the month, and we need to be as prepared for it as possible. I'm talking bottled water, batteries, all that stuff, because they're going to lose power. They're going to lose everything. It's going to be ugly. And I think maybe they see that and they're trying to just position themselves as best they can before all of that hits, because they're going to have to deal with it. They're going to have no choice but to deal with it. And September 25th is the docuseries. Bad Blood is going to be October 5th. So that's going to be about 10 or 11 days later. You got to wonder what that first media scrum is going to be like. Like, if you are a journalist in that scrum, I would say to Triple H, so the future home of Monday Night Raw, Netflix, just dropped a 6-part Vince McMahon or 6-part docuseries on your father-in-law. What are your thoughts on it?
I just like to think about it positive right now. I just want to be positive. We're trying to look at Survivor Series coming up, and I don't really talk to Vince very much anymore.
It'd just be so fun to watch him dance around that. Oh my God. So it's going to be ugly. It's going to be ugly, man. Just a thought on those Legends deals. But aside from that, Jacqueline and Victoria have both inked up WWE Legends deals. Good for them. Two of my favorites. Jacqueline, Miss Jackie, Miss Texas, Jacqueline Moore, whatever you want to call her. I wouldn't even call her underrated because everybody loves Jackie, but she was a beast. I mean, she really was. I always liked her. And Victoria was another one coming in around the Diva era time, and Victoria way back in the day, like the first few episodes of Monday Night Raw in the Manhattan Center in 1993. She was one of the Raw girls holding up the signs and stuff. And then to come back all those years later and have a really good career as a wrestler and some really fun matches in a time in the company to where it was very, very, very diva heavy, in the women's division. You only had a few. You had the Trish's, Molly Holly, Victoria, maybe a couple others, Miss Jackie, Jazz, who could go legitimate workers, but they were all around the Stacys and the Tories and all that. Mickey James is around that time too. And Victoria, I think one of my favorite matches she was ever in was Survivor Series 2002 with Trish. It was like a no holds barred match or street fight or something. They had weapons and everything. She was so good, had a good look, and had presence and was intimidating, was strong, could beat your ass. She could kick the shit out of you. She was like a legitimately tough woman. I'm very happy that she has made it into a Legends contract in WWE. And help me out, I think Jacqueline is in the Hall of Fame. Victoria might not be, right? I think Victoria needs to be. This might be the beginning of it. I mean, I would, if Victoria signed a Legends deal now, I'd like to be the first one to nominate her for the Hall of Fame next year. If she hasn't gone in already, I might have been forgetting one. She might have gone in recently and I forgot. But I think Jacqueline is in for sure because I have a memory of that. But I don't know about Victoria. Oh yeah, the Juliet is saying now we need to get Victoria a Hall of Fame induction. And I think that next year is a really good possibility for that. I think it could happen. I think it could. Okay, what's next on my list? Okay, Julia. Julia's here. Julia arrived in NXT this week. We saw her show up last Sunday when we were doing our classic watch along. We had No Mercy pulled up on the TV over here. I was kind of eyeballing both. And at the end of the Roxanne Perez match, who'd she beat? Jada Parker, I think. Out came Julia. Now, it was kind of believed that she was going to be there. It had gotten leaked that she was on her way to wherever the hell, I think Denver they were in, right? So people were expecting to see her. She did. She came out at the end of the match, confronted Roxanne. She looked great, great entrance, great presentation. Julia is going to be a big deal. Wasn't very familiar with Julia earlier than a year ago. And when the first rumblings a few months back of her coming to WWE, started checking out more of her stuff online and, getting a better idea of who she is. And I really just like her look. Great wrestler, great aura, as the kids are saying these days. And her being a part of WWE is going to be huge. And then she showed up on Tuesday on NXT, beat the shit out of Chelsea Green. So Julia is here. She's in NXT. She's probably going to fast track her way through there, I would assume, before she comes up to the main roster. They'll probably give her a run with the title, I guess. I don't know how long her stint there is going to last. I don't think there's necessarily any rush to get her to the main roster, but doing something in NXT could leave the door open for more cross-promotion, whatever she's going to do with Rossi's group. Don't really know. But she is officially now in WWE, working in NXT, and now we can all start to appreciate her here in the States. Looking forward to her run getting off the ground. And I'm sure it's going to be met with a lot of early success, I would assume. I guess we need to talk about also, speaking of people coming into the WWE, we got to talk about people leaving the WWE. Odyssey Jones, gone from the company, reportedly quietly fired earlier this week after some domestic violence allegations came to light. Now, we were here for the watch along on Monday. We were watching Raw together, and it was announced earlier in the day, or reported earlier on in the day, that Odyssey Jones was no longer on the WWE roster page. So they were wondering if it was like a glitch, but if it was a glitch, it would be easily fixable, So there's no reason why they wouldn't be able to fix that like almost instantly. I remember Meltzer was saying, oh, it's just a glitch or whatever. I'm like, well, then fix the fucking glitch. If it's just a matter of re-adding him to the roster page, just do that. So if 8 hours go by and WWE's amazing website team can't figure out how to add him to the roster page, shit, fucking 4-year-old could do that. Something must be up. And then fans started realizing, well, shit, holy shit, he wasn't really mentioned last week either. Now, the week before, I think that was an Xavier match, and Kofi and Xavier acknowledged Odyssey, but not by name. And I don't think anybody 2 weeks ago picked up on that. Nobody really thought much of it. And then when we get the news on Monday that he's not on the roster page, and then on Raw, we see Kofi talking to Adam Pearce, no mention at all of Odyssey Jones. And then by the end of the day, it was reported that he was, in fact, let go by the company. Now, we don't know, or at least I don't know. I'm not sure if it's out there. I looked around. I didn't really see any specifics or got any details about Odyssey Jones' domestic violence allegations. But I do remember reading tweets when he first debuted, when he came in and did the double thing to AOP. I saw shit about him online that people were saying, but I didn't know anything about it. There was no receipts, no links, no proof to anything. It was just something sketchy. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll see if anything comes of this. But I'm not sure if WWE is really in the habit, hopefully isn't these days, of debuting talent, putting them on TV if they got a whole bunch of these fucking allegations. We already saw that with Gable Steveson, and he's gone. So with Odyssey Jones, we don't know why he was let go. And, you know, fans are going to jump to comparisons. Well, why is he allowed to stay and so-and-so's not, or whatever. And, you know, there's a fair argument to be made about JD McDonough. You can do your own research on that. And I understand that. The only thing that I saw that might have some merit to it was that it might not have been necessarily the domestic violence allegations themselves, especially since no charges were filed or anything like that. It was about him lying about it, where they didn't know about this. He was asked about any problems in his past. He said no. Then things came to light. That also makes him look bad. So that might have had a little bit more to do with it, you know, because, you know, well, why would, if one guy's got domestic violence allegations, why would he get to stay and this guy get to leave? I don't know. We don't know the details of these situations, and we're not WWE management, and we're not back there. So we don't know. All we can do is just guess and wonder and speculate. So the one thing I did read about him kind of lying about it made a little bit of sense. And the thing is there's been evidence. You can go back. I just never saw any of this stuff, but there's been a lot of things said about Odyssey Jones for over a year now. So these things have been known by some in the community for a while. You see tweets that are a year old talking about this guy kind of being a scumbag. So now WWE, I guess, learns of this. And again, no details. I don't know who he domestically violated or what. I have no idea. But whatever it was enough for WWE to say, okay, we're just going to drop this whole brand new fresh angle we just started. We smashed you over like $1 million, and what you've done is bad enough for us just to cut you completely. So it must be pretty bad. And that's a shame too. He's a big fucking guy, you know, and he was pretty impressive. But allegations like that, I cannot believe how long they kept Gable Steveson around. He was just cut also by the Buffalo Bills. Oh, that's a shame. Poor guy. So yeah, good riddance to Odyssey. I mean, if any of this stuff is even remotely true, then he can't be working there anyway. So he's gone, likely not to come back. And now you have to wonder what that's going to do to the New Day angle that they were doing. If this was going to be a big part of why Xavier turns, they got to maybe reconfigure that now. So we will see. But we talked about that on Monday when we were here for the live reaction. But at the time, we didn't really know what the story was. It still wasn't really confirmed if Odyssey Jones is really gone or not. But apparently, he gone. And that's fine with me, to be honest. I think that mostly wraps up the wrestling news. We can get into Smackdown now a little bit, and then we will transition into some AEW stuff, because I got to talk about the house burning down on Dynamite. We had Collision tonight, which did have some all-out implications because it helped put together a match. And then, of course, we have All Out that we have to predict. So we will be doing that here right now. Let me get back to my spot. Let me check the chat, see what you guys are doing over here. If anybody hasn't smashed that thumbs up button for me, that would be super duper, and I would very much appreciate it. All right, I think I thanked Isaac for the gift membership. So did Juliet, hooking up Simply Unknown. I can't remember if I got that one or not. And I want to say hello to my friend Chris Ludek, fellow Californian, yeah, We're not Californers. We're Californians. Thanks for the $5, dude. Greg, happy birthday, my man. Glad you're doing well. I was at Gaslamp last weekend, and a guy was so drunk he legit blew chunks on the sidewalk. Been there. I've also seen that before. I've seen chunks blown in my direction by some drunk idiot. It's never fun. Get out of the way of flying vomit. Always. It's never fun. Rodrigo, thanks for 2 more from you. Triple H. Should Triple H ban Hogan from WWE? No, I think Hogan just signed another Legends deal too. I think Hogan just re-upped with the company as well in some sort of a Legends deal. He had said, I think on Impulsive. So Hogan isn't going anywhere. Hogan, when you think about Odyssey Jones being let go and Hogan kept around, I don't know what goes into these decisions. If I was the company, I wouldn't want anything to do with Hulk Hogan, but they feel that, they're trying their best to preserve a legacy that was so important to their company. And I can appreciate that. I can understand that. But, still, Hogan brings a lot of ugliness and he's really, really ruined his reputation. And I'm just not sure if it's really worth it anymore, but they really cherish and hold the Hulk Hogan era in very high regard in the company. And I think they want to preserve that for all time, I guess. But it's just a shame that Hogan has done and said the things that he has done and said. Californicators. There you go. Shell shock. That's what I was trying to say. Right on. Okay, so what is next here? Let's talk about tonight's WWE Smackdown on Fox. Now, I'm not going to give you a big, full, detailed review like you would get on a Monday Night Raw because I had SmackDown on one screen, Collision on the other, and I was trying to make notes for both. So it's going to be pretty brief here in what we saw on SmackDown. But I want you guys to let me know what you thought of SmackDown tonight. Did you like the show? Was it a good show? I think the best thing about tonight was that it was the final SmackDown on Fox. Good riddance. Good riddance. They showed a big highlight package of the 5 years on SmackDown, and 90% of it was from the last 2 years. And they showed a lot of footage of that first ever episode that I was at for some inexplicable reason. I drove up to LA 5 years ago for that show, met David Arquette outside the arena, and we had great seats, Elizabeth and I, for that show. And we watched Brock Lesnar beat Kofi Kingston in 2 fucking seconds. And at the end of that, Rey Mysterio brought out Cain Velasquez. I'm pretty sure Tyson Fury was in the front row for that. The Rock showed up to the event, which Mr. Santizap was talking to me on Twitter today, asked me if I regretted or felt scammed by the show. And I'm like, yeah, yes and no. The Brock beating Kofi match is still something that's always going to leave a horrible taste in my mouth. But The Rock was there. And it was the first time I had seen The Rock live in person since 2002. So I had gone 17 years in between seeing The Rock in person. I saw The Rock a lot in the Attitude Era, a ton of times in the Attitude Era. Pay-per-view matches, title matches. I was even behind gorilla position talking shit to him one time. So I've had lots of experience with The Rock when he was young, but a long time went by and he came out and insulted Baron Corbin and did the whole deal. That was cool. It was cool to see The Rock. I also remember that night, the debut of the parentheses sets on SmackDown that everybody kind of liked. People liked the parentheses. So I think we had high hopes for this new look SmackDown, but the look immediately changed. Then we went into the pandemic era. They swapped out the commentary team 9, 10, 11, 12, 38 times in the last 5 years. And they finally got some good moments in the last 2 when the Bloodline became a thing. And we had those great SmackDowns, those cinematic SmackDowns. So they've had some good moments recently, but I think largely fans would like to forget that SmackDown was ever on the Fox network. It made the censoring unbearable. If you've got to censor a word or censor the crowd who's chanting "fuck you" or something, and just how awful it was and how badly it affected the program, how badly it affected what you're trying to watch. And it's not going to be as bad on USA Network, but it's still going to exist, but it's even worse on like network. So I'm glad that they're at least able to get to USA to where there's more of a happy medium. And then over on Netflix, I think they're still going to have to adhere to their PG guidelines, but I think if you let an F-bomb slide, nobody's going to be panicking over there. Where, USA Network, Fox is, kind of a different type of deal. So no more SmackDown on Fox. I'm very ready for them to go to USA next week on the 13th, because in the rare occasion that I'm actually home on a Friday night to watch SmackDown, I've never been able to do that unless I watch it on an illegal stream like I did tonight. Thank you, Jacob Zombie Fighter, for that link. Now, if I'm ever home, USA will play it live, where Fox, I have to wait till 8 p.m. local time, which is 3 hours after the show airs. So I'm happy for it to go to USA. I'm glad that this Fox experiment is over. It has not been a very fun 5 years, but it's been a fun last 2. They showed the clip of Sammy going, he's just not feeling very oozy. Oh my God. That might be the SmackDown. I think that Sammy's saying not feeling very oozy. I think there's 3 moments. There's that one. And it's when Jay was like, and I'm out too, when he kicks Roman Reigns. And the moment where Kevin Owens pulls Sami Zayn in for a hug. Like when they come back together. Oh, so good. Such good stuff. But largely, SmackDown on Fox has sucked, and I'm glad it's going back to the USA Network. Second stint for SmackDown on the USA Network. How many total networks has SmackDown been on? UPN, CW, Sci-Fi, SmackDown, Fox, SmackDown again. What else? Am I missing a network in there somewhere? I feel like I am. I feel like SmackDown's been even more places than that. Help me out. But let's talk about SmackDown tonight. It opened up with a big highlight package showing us what happened last Saturday at Bash in Berlin, where Cody Rhodes was successful in the opener, defeating Kevin Owens, retaining the WWE title. And Cody Rhodes opens the show tonight, comes out to American Nightmare, crowd is jacked. And he says, first of all, he heaps some praise onto Michael Cole, which was nice to see the crowd appreciating Michael Cole. There was a time when I couldn't stand that fucker, but I think a lot of people are starting to appreciate, what he actually brought. And he's going to go down and be remembered as a legendary announcer. So Michael Cole got a little bit of love. And then Cody said, I know how these things work. I've been doing this forever. I'm going to get interrupted any minute. So he basically invites the bloodline out. Solo Sikoa comes out. And he's got the bloodline there at ringside with him. He gets in the ring. And Cody, Solo has said that he wants the next title shot. And Cody basically offers a title shot and then says to Solo, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to you, Jacob Fatu. And he points to Jacob on the outside of the ring, who's looking right at the camera with that fucking grill of his. And tells Jacob to step up. Come on, get in the ring. I want to give you a title shot. And Solo's like, I know what you're doing. You're trying to create a wedge. You're trying to create problems between me and Jacob. And he tells Jacob to stand down, and Jacob does. And so even though I'm not a big fan of a Solo-led bloodline, I do like that they're doing the same thing with Jacob pretty much that they were doing with Solo and Roman. There was times there when I felt like, it's funny how much hate Solo gets now, because when Solo was in the position that Jacob was in, with Roman Reigns, fans were saying, some fans, I saw this on social media, fans whose opinions I respect, actually pitched Solo being the one to take the title from Roman Reigns. Just based on Solo's demeanor, the way he was looking at Roman a few times, some of the things Roman said, and fans could feel like, oh my God, maybe Solo's going to be the one to break out and cost Roman. And now Jacob Fatu is kind of in that same position. So hopefully if Jacob, becomes the leader of the bloodline, fans won't turn on him too. But I think Jacob is much more appealing as a wrestler than Solo Sikoa because he's a lot more just intense, a lot more Umaga-like. Solo comes off a little dull, to be honest. And Cody inviting and offering up a title shot to Jacob Fatu is pretty exciting, because that means WWE sees in Jacob the same thing that we all see in Jacob. And we know that this guy's going to be the real deal. He is a big deal. And now that he's in the company, he should be a very big part of this bloodline story. Going into War Games and going into next year, you could definitely see a power struggle between him and Solo Sikoa potentially blossoming. So Solo calls off Jacob, and Nick Aldis then shows up because the Bloodline jumps in the ring. They swarm Cody, but then Cody has some backup himself. The Street Profits and DIY hit the ring. Big standoff with the Bloodline. Nick Aldis then shows up. He gets in between everybody, and he says that the match next week between Cody Rhodes and Solo Sikoa for the WWE title is official, and it will be inside of a steel cage. He also made an 8-man tag main event for the other 8 dudes in the ring, with the Bloodline taking on Streets and DIY. So next week, it's going to be Cody and Jacob in a cage. This is going to be 6 days after Hangman and Swerve likely main event All Out in a cage. I think Solo Sikoa should burn down Cody's bus. How great would that be? Leading up. Well, there's not even any time to do it because we don't have a SmackDown before next week's SmackDown. So no time to blow up the bus. You're just going to have to do the cage match. And I'm sure next week on the season premiere of SmackDown on the 13th on USA, Roman Reigns will make his presence known in this match. And the cage is going to keep a lot of the Bloodline members out, I'm sure, but I'm sure some will still find their way in there. And I'm sure we will see Roman Reigns show up. I don't know if he's necessarily going to help Cody win the match, or he might help Cody fight off the heels after Cody wins. Not really sure, but I would bank on Roman Reigns being there next week. We had Tiffany taking on Bayley, the returning Bayley, who we saw come back last week. Bayley beat Tiffany with the Rose Plant. Hilarious segment backstage with Kevin Owens talking to Grayson Waller and Austin Theory, and they've been teasing a split between these two guys for like months, and Kevin Owens is trying to stir the pot a little bit, and he convinces the two of them to face him in a triple threat. And he goes, like the great Wayne Gretzky once said, "Tonight looks like a great night for a triple threat." Yeah, Wayne Gretzky actually said that. That was hilarious. This next match is really interesting. We've got the debut of Giovanni Vinci, who was booted out of Imperium a few months back on Raw, drafted to SmackDown, and was yet to make his debut, but they started running vignettes for him a couple of weeks ago where he's just dressed like a fucking tool, and now he's here to make his debut. He's going to be taking on Apollo Crews. So he comes out with this new look and this new music, which sounds like shit. And he's wearing all white. He's got like a white jacket. He's got the sunglasses on. And he's all tanned and jacked. And he's got a very, very smooth body. This man just looks exquisite. And he's walking to the ring fucking slowly. He gets in the ring. And like an idiot, turns his back to Apollo Crews. Bell rings, by the way. He's got his back turned to his opponent. That's good stuff. It's a work of a veteran right there. Bell rings, turns his back to Crews, and takes like 2.5 minutes to get his jacket off. And then Crews is like, okay, comes right in from behind, hops on Vinci's back in a crucifix, rolls him up, 1, 2, 3. 3-second match. Well, maybe more than that. Pin was 3 seconds, probably a 20-second match at most. And Vinci loses in just a matter of seconds to Crews. Now, I guess the plan here is for Vinci to then turn around and then beat Crews. I get it, but I don't know how this is going to make Vinci look stronger in the long run. This was him being a damn idiot. And it would be one thing if he had already been on TV with this character for a while. We've gotten to know him as this character for a while. WWE feels like the character might be a little bit stale, a little bit boring, needs a change, so has decided to beat him real quick here so that can kind of change his attitude. Well, this is his debut. There's nothing to change yet. So I don't know, and we'll have to see what they do next week. Obviously, probably a return match, but I don't see any sort of path that you could take to where you could look back at this match and say, oh, that was what springboarded Vinci, to the next level or whatever. I'm not sure if this is the way I would have done it. So we'll see how they follow up with it. Crews gets the win. Hey, I'm happy that they didn't just bring Crews in from catering to use him as a jobber, but he's going to wind up jobbing eventually to Vinci. And we'll see if this guy has any charisma. Vinci's got a good look, but he is kind of on the bland looking side. And a lot of people have talked about his charisma or lack thereof before. So we'll see how we go. We'll wish him luck. I got nothing against Vinci. I think a lot of fans were happy that he was brought back when he was initially released or something, right? So He's got a support system there. Fans like him. Sure, a lot of fellow wrestlers like him. So we'll have to see, where he takes this character going forward. But after being bitched out by Gunther, and then this with Cruz, I don't know, man. We'll see. Might be dead in the water already. Owens defeats Grayson Waller and Austin Theory in the triple threat match. Shout out to Theory with just the amazing Stone Cold Stunner cell, and Owens got the win there. So they're still teasing the split between Waller and Theory, and Owens is the one kind of stirring the pot here. We will see with Kevin Owens if he circles back to Cody after next week, or if he does show up in that Cody and Solo match, still turns heel, still earns himself another title shot against Cody, at Bad Blood. That could still happen. But we got to see after next week when Roman comes back and all of that goes down, how affiliated Cody is going to be with either Roman or the Bloodline after next week. We'll just have to wait and see. We had a fun promo with LA Knight, came out there to a hero's welcome, big ovation, gets in the ring with his U.S. title, talking some smack. Carmelo Hayes and Andrade show up. They both want shots at the United States Championship. They all jaw jack. There's a brawl. LA Knight winds up hitting the BFT on both of them. So we'll see if Andrade and Carmelo have to face each other to determine who the number one contender for the U.S. title is. Excuse me. Or if LA Knight takes them both on in a triple threat. Like Wayne Gretzky said, it's a beautiful night for a triple threat. Chelsea Green got back into her winning ways after getting her ass kicked by Julia on Tuesday. She defeated Mi Chin in a pretty fun match. Piper Niven hit like a senton on Mi Chin on the outside of the ring when the referee has back turned. She threw her back in the ring. Chelsea hit her with the Unpretty Her for the win. I'm a big fan of Chelsea, a big fan of Mi Chin, and a big fan of Piper Niven. So that was all kinds of fun to watch. Big 8-man main event. We had both shows tonight actually had 8-mans. I guess WWE counter-programmed that because AEW for Collision, I'm pretty sure they had their big 8-man announced. Tonight, everything was done impromptu, so I didn't put that together until right now, but Collision and Smackdown both ran 8-man main events. So in this one, it was, of course, the Bloodline against the Street Profits and DIY. It was the Bloodline getting the win here. 2 Samoan spikes, vicious Samoan spikes by Solo to Montez Ford for the win. Street Profits and DIY had to coexist. And somebody pointed out, I didn't notice it in the opening segment there, but I guess when DIY and Street Profits came out to back up Cody, I guess Ciampa made some looks at the gold belt, perhaps. Maybe gave it a look over there, eyeball. Maybe Cody wants to grant a championship match to a random opponent. Cody and Tommaso Ciampa for the title? Do it. Do it on TV. Do it somewhere. Do it in Saudi Arabia. That could be fun. Why not? So maybe that was a little tease that they might actually be setting up Ciampa for a title shot. I'd be all right with that. No problem. But the 8-man appeared to be fun, the little bit that I saw of it, and the Bloodline got the win. And now Solo Sikoa rolls into next week to face Cody in the cage, and I am certain he's going to lose that match. There is no way Solo Sikoa is going to win the title next week on SmackDown. He better not. And that would be wild if we had a title change on the season premiere on Fox. Why not do one on SmackDown? Which would be more disappointing? Kofi getting beat by Brock or Cody being beat by Solo? My God, they would both suck. But I'm pretty confident that Cody will survive next week, and he will probably do that with a little bit of an assist from Roman Reigns, most likely. Yeah, Transferring Heat says Giovanni cut a promo on the socials saying you beat me before I was ready. Yeah. I mean, that's the point. And I think it got more people talking about Giovanni. No, it didn't. Nobody's talking about Giovanni at all, really. I don't think it would have mattered. I think the same amount of people would have talked about Giovanni if he beat Apollo Crews and then if he lost to him, because it was still his debut. It was the first time we were seeing him as this new character. So you're going to talk about him. I don't think it got more people talking at all. I think it got the same amount of people talking. So no, I don't agree with that. But I mean, I understand he had his back turned and he wasn't ready, but that's his fault. If the bell rings, keep your eyes on your opponent. All that did is make him look stupid. If he says I wasn't ready, I'm like, well, when the bell rings, you better be ready, bitch. Like that's not an excuse. I wasn't ready. The bell rang. So you have to be ready. If the bell rang and you're taking off your jacket, that's nobody's fault but yours. Look in the mirror, you bald bitch. That's what I say to Giovanni Vinci. Yo, Vontae, the new one. Appreciate you being here, man. Thanks for the $2 and appreciate that birthday wish there, man. All right, we got to move on to Dynamite this past week. I'm not going to talk about really anything on Dynamite other than 2 segments. The first one is we got to talk about Moxley real quick. Moxley and Marina Shafir came to the ring to cut a promo, and we didn't really get any new indication of what's going on here. Now, Moxley last week on Dynamite said that cryptic line to Tony Schiavone, "This is not your company anymore." Got a lot of fans wondering if we get Shane McMahon coming in here and we got a Shane and Mox shooter club being formed or something. They haven't even really acknowledged yet that he's just not having anything to do with the Blackpool Combat Club. There wasn't any sort of an official split there that they did that I'm misremembering, right? So Moxley's just completely done with those guys. And now he's affiliated with Marina Shafir. So on Dynamite, they come out to the ring and call out once again Darby Allin. Now Moxley called out Darby the week before as well, but there was no other cryptic lines in this. This was just Moxley and Marina Shafir telling Darby Allin that they just want to talk. We just want to talk. And that was it. And they left. So I'm wondering if they show up at, Darby doesn't even have a match, does he? Yeah, I guess Darby's not even on All Out. I was thinking Darby, I don't know why I thought Darby Allin had a match at All Out, but I was thinking they might show up there and interfere or something, but he's not even booked. So this is going to be something that's going to continue on TV. Not sure if there's really a reason for Moxley and Shafir to show up at All Out, since the only thing they've made mention to in Moxley's first 2 promos is Darby Allin. So I don't know what this means. I don't know what they're trying to do. I don't know if that's going to be a situation where he's trying to recruit Darby Allin, because he was very complimentary to Darby on Dynamite. So if he's trying to recruit him into his little shooter group here or something, and then Darby denies him, and they're using Moxley as a way to prevent Darby from winning the championship when he gets that title shot, I guess at Grand Slam or wherever it's going to be. You know, maybe if that's going to be against Danielson, you know, Moxley showing up there to help Danielson win or cost Darby the match could be a way to factor into all of this. But I'm still wondering if once this angle gets moving and we see what the motivations and the intent is, if it's still going to lead to Shane McMahon or not. Right now, it doesn't really feel like it is. But what the hell was Moxley talking about last week when he delivered that line? You know, that sounded like it was going to be a big deal. And now it just sounds like he's trying to start a feud or recruit Darby Allin. So we'll have to see. The other segment, of course, that I want to talk about from Wednesday night was the terrific main event segment between Swerve Strickland and Adam Page. Now, earlier on in the day, on Wednesday, there was some social media videos of Swerve Strickland and Prince Nana outside of what he was calling his childhood home. And he fulfilled a lifelong dream to purchase his childhood home with the money that he just made from his new AEW contract. And he talked about the house, how he moved around as a kid, but how he spent the majority of his childhood in this home. He was standing out in the front yard of it. And everybody was just giving him all the kudos, all the love. So happy for you, how cool this is for you. And it's the same day as Dynamite. And so finally, a few fans were like, are we being worked here? Like, Hangman Page could burn this bitch to the ground tonight on Dynamite. And I was like, oh, that would be so good. That would be so good. And I had to work. So the whole time on Wednesday night, I keep looking at my phone. Finally, I kind of see the ending of Dynamite. And I'm like, oh, that's so good. I'm so glad they did that. I could not wait to come home and watch it. So Swerve Strickland is in the ring, cutting a promo, talking about whatever. And it's the contract signing. That's what it is. It's the contract signing for All Out. It's Hangman Page, Swerve Strickland in the cage. Swerve is out there. Hangman is a no-show. And he then shows up on the video wall, and you could tell right away where he was. He was inside of a house. You could see the patchy drywall and shit. And almost immediately Swerve is like screaming, no, no. And and Hangman Page is walking through the house. And it was right here where your mother cooked you dinner. And it was right here where your father was telling you how disappointed he was in you and just shitting on his family, going through all the rooms in the house, talking about Swerve's memories and his mother and his father and all of this just deeply personal stuff. And then he walks out the side door there and he walks down to a chair, like a lawn chair that's right in the front of the house with a little side table with like a cooler, a beer or whatever. And as he's walking through the house too, you can see in his hand is a gas can. He's got a gas can in his hand. He poured gasoline all over the house, all down the porch, and poured a line of gasoline right to his chair. And then he takes a match and he lights the match and he just tosses it behind his head. It lights. The whole house goes up in flames. Crazy amount of flames. The windows blow out literally as Hangman is sipping his beer. You know the meme with the little girl looking at the camera with that sadistic smile and there's like a house burning behind her? It was kind of like that. And it was just so badass. It was perfectly shot. That image, that silhouette that I put in the thumbnail here of Hangman drinking his beer with a burning house behind him, that's great. Now, it is arson. We have to remember that Hangman Page might not make it to All Out because he might be in prison for arson. Arson's a serious deal. You don't want to be burning houses down. You can go to jail for a long time for that shit. So he committed arson. Now, no big deal. We've seen murders committed on pro wrestling shows before. So arson is not that big of a deal. But burning down Swerve's house was so great. And when you look at the heat for this match, no pun intended, the literal heat, I cannot wait to see this main event. I mean, this is their top angle. I think AEW knows that. This is their top angle. Probably the top rivalry in the business right now. I mean, CM Punk and Drew McIntyre are doing great things. You know, they've got their issue is personal, but kind of in a different direction. You know, we haven't seen any home invasions or arson yet, but we've seen some pretty personal, family stuff. They're feuding over the bracelet, and whatnot. And of course, the tribalists are going to compare the number. Oh, there's a lot more people watching that. None of that shit matters. It's about you as a fan, which one you like more. And I like them both, but I think I like Hangman and Swerve a little bit more. That doesn't disqualify the other one as an unworthy angle. They're both terrific angles. They've both been amazingly entertaining to watch. It is totally fine to like one a little bit more than the other. But you got no business telling somebody else which one's better or telling somebody else which one they're supposed to like better. Like whichever one you want. I happen to find entertainment in both. Both of these angles are sports entertaining the shit out of me. And I love them both. But I might give the slight nod to Hangman and Swerve because Swerve's doing amazing work right now. This whole feud between them has been great. And we've seen Swerve on more of the sadistic side of this, and like, what did Swerve expect? I mean, think about it from Hangman Page's batshit insane character's point of view. This is a man who broke into your home and stood over the crib of your daughter when she was laying in it. Wouldn't you burn down a motherfucker's house who did that to you? So what's great about this feud is like, you can't even blame Hangman. You can't even blame him for going off the rails the way he did. This is somebody who invaded his home. Far worse, all Hangman did was set fire to a vacant, empty home. Swerve entered Hangman's home that had humans in it, stood over the crib of his newborn daughter. Holy shit. You do that to me, I might set fire to your house too. So it's been great. It's been a great ride. And now we're heading into this cage match at All Out with Swerve's childhood home being burned down. And the last time these guys were in a hardcore match was that death match. And that's when like Swerve drank Hangman's blood, pulled him over the edge of the ring, took his bloody head and put his mouth under there like he would at 7-Eleven, wheezing the juice. Shout out to Encino Man. So that's gnarly. So what are they going to do this time? I mean, they were drinking each other's blood in the last violent match. And now you've added even more heat. So what are they going to do? Is somebody going to die? And when you ask yourself, like, who should win this match? If you're watching just the angle on Wednesday, you're going to say, Swerve needs to kill this guy. But look at the record between them. If Swerve wins, it feels like this thing is over. Hangman kind of has to win. For this feud to continue being as great as it is, it has to be a Hangman victory. So that's kind of what I would do at this point. At first I was thinking, well, maybe Danielson takes the title into Wrestle Dream into Tacoma and he drops it back to Swerve. We might have a little bit longer of a road to go before we get there. And it might be what I would do is have Hangman beat Swerve. And that's going to be that's all in and all out losses for Swerve back to back. That's okay. It's okay. It's a cage match. You can do some crazy shit in there and protect Swerve a little bit if you have to, but give Hangman Page the victory. Then, eventually, maybe at Wrestle Dream, have Hangman Page beat Danielson for the championship. And then Swerve takes the championship from Hangman and wins it back. Now, the only thing that will do that might be considered negative by the fans is probably give Hangman a short title run. And I'd actually be fine with that. You know, if Hangman beat Danielson and then Swerve comes right after him and beats him for the championship, I'd be fine with that because it would tie into Hangman's craziness too. You know, he's just the type of unbalanced type of wrestler right now that would actually have a really short title run. And you could add some drama. And, you know, WWE and AEW, they don't want to be doing the same things with their title belts. They don't want to both be having year-long feuds going on at the same time or year-long title runs. And if AEW wanted to take things back a little bit old school, back to the days of 1998 and 1999, where it felt like the world championship in both companies was changing hands every 8 hours. So what's wrong with doing a little bit of that? Not doing it permanently and making that your permanent, booking philosophy or style, but just doing it for a little bit. Hey, the last 4 months of 2024, we're going to go apeshit with this championship. Why not? Have some fun. So hopefully that's kind of the direction and the path they take. But like I said, the only problem with my pitch of Hangman beating Swerve and then beating Danielson and then Swerve winning the title back from him is that you probably would want to accomplish that all in the next, short amount of time, next few months or whatever. I don't think you want to turn around another year from now trying to stretch out this Hangman and Swerve stuff. You should just go at it hard while the feud is hot, That's the way I would structure this thing. But in terms of their all-out match, I feel like it's got to be Hangman. It's the only way to really do it. But that segment on Dynamite that closed the show was so good, that image of him burning down the house. And I guess that means what AEW did was they just bought some shit-ass abandoned house. Maybe they picked up some old foreclosed house, in an auction or something, and they were willing to eat the price to torch it. Who knows where it even was? I don't know what city was it in Washington? I don't know where Swerve was claiming they were, but it really could have been anywhere. And then a lot of fans also thought that it was two different houses because the house that was burning had like a railing, but that was the side of the house. The front of the house, it was definitely the same house. It wasn't two different houses, but it also probably wasn't Swerve's real childhood home. This was probably just some random house they bought for cheap so they could torch it for a storyline. I applaud that. I applaud that. It's not the first time a wrestling company's bought a house for TV purposes. WWE gave one away back in 1995. So that was fun. What a great closing to Dynamite. I loved that. Now, Collision aired tonight at the same time as Smackdown. Run quickly here through the results. We had 3 one-on-one matches that were going to determine Okada's 3 opponents for the 4-way match tomorrow for the Continental Classic. It was Mark Briscoe taking on Lance Archer. Mark Briscoe won to advance, and Mark Briscoe was busted open. Very violent match. And we had Orange Cassidy beating Brian Keith and Takeshita beating the Beast Motos. So it's going to be Takeshita and Orange Cassidy and Mark Briscoe challenging Okada tomorrow at All Out in a 4-way for the championship. And I like that. That should be a fun match, and I would really like to see Takeshita be the guy to take the title off of Okada. I think Okada should retain tomorrow, but that would lead to, hopefully, a Takeshita and Okada match where Takeshita can beat him. He's had a lot of... Takeshita has fell victim to AEW being AEW. You know, this is a guy that's got a couple of victories over Kenny Omega from last year and was really, really on the rise, and then his momentum just stalled. So if they want to kick him back up here and move him into, you know, a feud with Okada, eventually taking the Continental title off of him, I would love that. I would absolutely love that for Takeshita. He's one of my favorite people in AEW. We also had Shida defeating Deonna Purrazzo. Mercedes came out after that. Camille attacked Shida. She fought them both off. Good for her. We had some tag matches on Collision tonight. The Grizzleds were in action defeating Bear Country. They were then confronted by FTR. The Outrunners, who I love, my God, they're great. They defeated a couple of jobbers. And in the main event, it was Collision's, AEW's big 8-man, their all-star 8-man. And I did not see who won that. Anyway, it was Bryan Danielson, Claudio, Wheeler Yuta, and Pac versus the Bucks, Okada, and Jack Perry. There was an overrun on Collision, and I actually stopped watching it, so I didn't even see the finish. I forgot that I didn't see the finish of the main event. Let me know who won, because I don't. But that was your main event. I would assume the heels won that. I feel like they're all going to... No, I could have gone either way. I think Perry is the only heel that's going to lose tomorrow. Yeah, I don't know who won that match. Okay, Outrunners defeated GCW's Bang and Matthews. That's awesome. Hey, thank you, We Are Pro Wrestling, for the birthday wish there. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you, Austin Olston. Hope you had a great day and enjoyed some great wrestling. Yes, SmackDown was pretty decent tonight, I thought. And it's been fun hanging out with y'all. But we ain't done yet. We still have to predict tomorrow's All Out. As a reminder, we are going to be here tomorrow night for the watch party. All Out watch party. It's going to be a blast. We will be here watching the entire pay-per-view, and it should be a good one. Here's what we got, and please let me know if I'm missing a match. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 8. I've got 8. I feel like there should be 9 or 10, but I only have 8. We have Willow Nightingale taking on Chris Statlander. I think this might be a Chicago street fight. I didn't write down the stip, but I think that it is. I'm going to go Statlander in Willow and Statlander's match. I'm going to predict Chris Statlander to win that. Will Ospreay defending the International Championship against Pac. Will Ospreay 100% there. We've seen this match before. I think they even wrestled on Dynamite like 2 years ago. So Will Ospreay and Pac are not strangers to each other. They've even wrestled outside of AEW, but I don't see Pac beating Ospreay here. I would keep Ospreay rolling, so I'm going to go Ospreay. MJF and Daniel Garcia, we saw a little interaction between those guys as well to open the show on Dynamite on Wednesday night. And MJF got the best of Garcia, smashing like a glass bottle over his head when MJF was up in the crowd, and Garcia chased him up there, and he got blasted in the face by a glass bottle. I'm going to go MJF on this one. I don't think MJF is going to lose 2 pay-per-views in a row. I think he'll beat Daniel Garcia, and Garcia will probably fall victim to his own rage or something. That's what I would do. Like, even though I think MJF will beat Garcia, I don't think that'll be the end of it. I think Garcia will get a victory over MJF. I just don't think it's going to happen here. I think he'll get it later. You know, he'll lose here, get a rematch, beat MJF down the road where you can maximize it more, I guess, is what I would guess on that one. So I'm going to predict MJF over Daniel Garcia. The Young Bucks taking on the Blackpool Combat Club for the tag team titles. Who's it going to be? It's got to be Claudio and Yuta then, right? It's going to be the Bucks versus Claudio and Yuta, I believe. for the tag team titles, and Claudio and Yuta are already 6-man champions with Pac, the Bucks. The Bucks all the way there. Kazuchika Okada defending his Continental Championship against Mark Briscoe, Orange Cassidy, and Konosuke Takeshita. Gonna go Okada in this one. I really, really want Takeshita to be the one to beat Okada. So that would be much more fun in a one-on-one match. Putting that on Wrestle Dream would make my bits tingle. Putting that on Grand Slam would also make my bits tingle. So wherever they want to give us that, I'm fine with it. But I think Okada should lose to Takeshita when the time comes. Mercedes Moné defending the TBS Championship against Hikaru Shida. Shida picked up a win tonight over Deonna Purrazzo, and she fought off both Mercedes and Camille with the kendo stick. So I'm going to pick Mercedes Moné to retain the TBS Championship. Thank you, Claudio and Yuta. Okay, thank you, Juliet. We got a 0-hour match, Top Flight and Action Andretti versus Shane Taylor, Lee Moriarty, the Beast Mordos, and Undisputed Kingdom. Okay. Let's predict that while I'm looking at it. 0-hour match. Shit. Let's go heels. Let's go Taylor, Undisputed Kingdom, and Moriarty and company on that one. Let's see, what match do I have after this one? Bryan Danielson defending the AEW Championship against Jack Perry. A lot of people were scratching their heads on Jack Perry being selected to get this title shot. I don't mind it. This is Danielson's first title defense since winning the title just a week ago. I think that he will easily successfully defend here, and Danielson will defeat Jack Perry. I believe squeaky clean right in the middle, and I believe this match will go on second to last. I don't think Jack Perry and Danielson should be the main event. Title or no title, I just don't think that's the main event we should have tomorrow. The main event should be Swerve Strickland versus Hangman Page inside of a steel cage. And based on the closing segment that we saw on Dynamite and the absolute murderous rage that Swerve must be feeling right now, this has got to be the main event. And I think it's going to be, it's up to them how far they want to take it. Like, do they want to tell a really, really good story here? Or they want to shock us? Like, do they want to shock us with the level of violence? You know, I think they can do a little bit of both. I think, telling us this story between the two guys combined with some really perverse violence is going to be nothing but fun. So I think we're going to see a lot of blood spilled to the point where they might not want to have anybody else bleed on this whole show. They might want to save it all for the main event, because even a pay-per-view company might have a limit of how many gallons of blood they want spilled. And you got to think somebody's going to be fucked up for real in this match, and we're likely to see everything. And if you put yourself in the shoes of a Swerve Strickland character, look at things from his character's perspective, I would think that Swerve would be making all sorts of accommodations for himself, having all sorts of tricks up his sleeve, a lot of plans for the match. Maybe he's going to stash some shit in a turnbuckle pad, or he's going to find a way to access more weapons or something. And more than just the standard stuff. Obviously, we probably going to get a bag of thumbtacks, a bag of glass, a bag of nails. You remember that's way old, like early 80s or maybe even 70s. I think it was 80s, Saturday Night Live. Dan Aykroyd played a character where he would go on and promote kids' toys. But it was always like, yeah, this is a bag of glass, just a bag of gross and broken glass. The kids can play with it and grab it and hold it up to the light. It makes different colors, and it would be a bag of nails. I think my favorite was Invisible Pedestrian, just an all black outfit for your kid to wear at night. So they could just get a bag of glass, bag of nails, bag of thumbtacks, bag of anything. What I think we might see is some fire, probably a flaming table. Swerve might try to burn Hangman Page. it's going to be ugly, man. It's going to be ugly. Now, at the end of the day, I feel like my heart wants Swerve Strickland to win because I'm a big Swerve Strickland fan. I want to see him be AEW champion again. Hangman Page burned his fucking house down, so he's got to win, right? But for the sake of the storyline, for this storyline to continue and for them to get more mileage out of it and for them to have a successful conclusion and climax and all that stuff, Hangman has to win here, because if Swerve wins and puts him down, then I feel like you're ending the angle. And this would be a good place to blow it off in a cage match, Swerve beating him for the fourth and final time or whatever it is, or third and final time. I think they have a draw. And then putting him down emphatically, that could end it. And then Swerve could, go back and target the championship again. But I think you get another pay-per-view or two out of this. And this feud is too good and has been too fun for them just to end right here. The fans are loving this, and they've done great by, Hangman Page has got that interview from like July where he basically said he was going to do what he did on Wednesday. Little subtle hints, that Swerve's life is going to go up in smoke and he's going to burn his life down and all this stuff. Hangman Page, he's changed. He's changed since Swerve tormented him all those months ago. And now we've seen a shift in the two, where Hangman's kind of the heel and Swerve's the babyface. And Hangman, I think, should just find a way to win this. And he pointed out that Swerve had a lot of help beating him the first two times. He mentioned Prince Nana, and he mentioned Prince Nana and Brian Cage. So Hangman could do the same thing that Swerve did to get those early victories. He could have him some help himself, whether it be the Elite, maybe a Brian Cage just for fun, or, somebody else random, finding a way to beat Swerve Strickland, set up a return down the line, but maybe have Hangman Page win the championship between now and then he's got to face Swerve for the title, and then Swerve, that's where he beats Hangman for good, wins the championship, and everything's full circle. That could be fun, and that could take you into the next several months. So we will see. But I think at the end of the day, I have to predict Hangman Page to beat Swerve Strickland. So just to recap, on the 0 hour, I'm picking Shane Taylor, Lee Moriarty, the Beast Mordos, and Undisputed Kingdom to beat Top Flight and Action Andretti. Oh, I'm sorry. I got that wrong, the Juliet. I thought that was all one team. That is a three-way trios match. It's a trios triple threat match with 9 dudes. Let's do that again. Let me re-predict this match because I read it wrong. It's Top Flight and Action Andretti versus Shane Taylor and Lee Moriarty and the Beast Mordos versus the Undisputed Kingdom. So it's 3 teams. I'm going to go Undisputed Kingdom to win the 0 hour match. I'm going to have Chris Statlander to beat Willow Nightingale, Will Ospreay over Pac for the International Championship, MJF to defeat Daniel Garcia, the Young Bucks to retain the tag team titles over the BCC. I've got Okada retaining his Continental title over Mark Briscoe, Orange Cassidy, and Konosuke Takeshita. I've got Mercedes Moné defeating Hikaru Shida to retain the TBS Championship. I've got Bryan Danielson beating Jack Perry to retain the AEW title, and Hangman Page beating Swerve Strickland in the steel cage. There you go. There is your all-out predictions in a nutshell. Let me know if you think I have any of those matches predicted incorrectly. I feel pretty good about most of them. We were perfect in Bash in Berlin. I think I got a match or two wrong at All In. So we'll see how we do for All Out. Oh, okay, we are pro wrestling. I didn't realize that. It's got a lights out stipulation. Okay, so that means they're already confirming it. It will be last. Good. I'm glad I don't have to go into the show tomorrow wondering that. At least we know that up front. I wasn't aware of even the lights out stipulation. So is lights out mean there's no pin? You just beat the lights out of your opponent? Is that what they're talking about? Because if that's the case, that is going to keep Swerve protected. That's going to avoid him getting pinned. If that's the type of stipulation, I kind of forgot what lights out means in AEW. It might just be beat your opponent into death or submission, and then you win. And if that's the case, that means Swerve can lose without technically being pinned or submitted. Some other shit can happen to him. He can get burnt up. Yeah, okay, that's right. And it's also unsanctioned, which means it'll protect Swerve from the win-loss, which will keep him seemingly in title contention. So Hangman's going to win here, but it's not really going to count. So, yeah, all the signs are pointing to a Hangman Page victory, and I think that's the right move. I think that's the right thing to do. They turn out the lights. Okay, just turn the lights off. Lights are off. Wrestle in the dark. How many lights out matches have we had that I've forgotten about? Probably a lot. Probably a lot. I want to thank Austin Olson for the very generous $10 drop there, my friend. Thank you for that. Greg, happy birthday. I hope you've had an amazing day. I was wondering if you could drop a darkest moments in wrestling series episode. I'm sure you know some dark moments. If that's okay, if not, that's okay too. We can get to that. I mean, we can do a stream, or maybe a live show one time where we talk about some of the dark moments, but we've talked about a lot of them over the years. And of course, Vice had a whole series, Dark Side of the Ring. We have endless amount of material when we have to talk about wrestling's dark moments. Austin, if you want anything kind of semi-recently, this past May, I dropped a video on the 25th anniversary of Owen Hart's death. And then a few years ago, when the Vice documentary, or the Vice Dark Side of the Rings on Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero and Owen came out, I think I did reviews on all of those as well. So you can already find some content on my channel with some dark moments. But we could do some more modern content for stuff like that. I don't like dark stuff, though. I hate talking about it, but we have to sometimes. Hey, thank you for being here, Yachiro. As always, always happy to see you here, my friend. Okay, thank you, Ricky. So Tony Khan made that after Dynamite went off the air last Wednesday. I think I didn't pick up on that, or I didn't write it down, one or the other. I know, Zane, that this day in histories are kind of fell victim to just my busy-ass life. But I need to try to do more of those, and I need to do this full time, so I can just do it every day. I'll give you this day in history every damn day if you can get me here full time. Anybody got a an eye on whatever happened on Rampage tonight? Probably nothing too much. Reading some of these other comments, guys. Just bear with me. I feel like there was a lot that I missed when I was yapping. I don't know where Ric Flair is. He was seen recently. I saw a video of him just the other day where he was saying something. God, he looks old as hell. But the more Ric Flair is not on my TV, the happier I tend to be. So I'm fine with Flair just not being around. Ricky just finished watching Solid Monsters review for Smackdown. It was boring. Bye-bye, Fox. Yeah, tonight's Smackdown, I really had like 60% attention. I mean, I was watching it. I was also watching Collision. I was making notes for the podcast here. Just, I wasn't really chomping at the bit for Smackdown tonight. I was just kind of mildly interested in the show. And plus, they were going to probably somewhat phone in their final Fox episode. They were gracious, though, in their exit. Thanked Fox for all their years there and showed a nice video package of, the 5 years they've spent there. But I think fans are largely going to remember WWE's time on Fox as a negative one. And like I said, I went to the first show. I drove up to LA. Me and Elizabeth got a hotel right across the street from Staples. We spent the night and we went to the show and watched that shit happen to to Kofi, and saw The Rock show up, which was cool. Had a fun meeting with David Arquette prior to the show starting. So it was a fun little trip, but I think looking back, I might not have gone to that show, but it did add another WWE title change that I witnessed in person. I don't know how many. I witnessed a lot in '99. I watched Austin win the title twice, WrestleMania, and the night after King of the Ring. Then I watched Triple H win the title at Unforgiven. Then the following year, seen 3 or 4. I thought I'd seen more than that. I thought I saw more WWE title changes. Then Brock beating Kofi. CM Punk beating Hangman Page at All Out a couple years ago. I'm trying to remember what else. And then I was at WrestleMania 39, but Cody didn't win the title. but Rhea Ripley did. So I've seen a fair amount of world championship changes, but never saw one back in the day. Never saw Hogan drop the title or nothing like that. So that would have been cool. That would have been cool to be in Indianapolis the night of the main event when Andre beat him. Oh, what a night. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for tonight, guys. And Austin Olsen has joined the family as well. So I think we took in close to 20 new channel members tonight. That is awesome. Thank you for that, guys. I appreciate your support. As always, it's always a pleasure. And it was fun spending a birthday night with you. Total dork, Friday night on my birthday, home alone, hanging out with you guys. That's how I roll. But thank you so much for being here. As Tito is, you can't see him because he's behind Bret Hart's head, but he's doing something real funny. Let's see if you guys can see him. Tito, say hello. He's got his hand caught on his little scratching post there, and his claw is stuck, so I might have to go rescue him. But that's going to be it for me tonight, guys. I'm going to bail out of here. Join us tomorrow. We will be here about 15 minutes before the main show starts. We're not going to be up here for the 0 hour, but right before the main card starts for All Out tomorrow, we will be here live. So the link is already up on my channel right now. You can go click that and save that for tomorrow, and join us again in less than 24 hours for more wrestling fun on the Good Mike Work Commentaries YouTube channel. Y'all are the best. I love you a lot, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Peace.